Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
And so it begins. So much action to come, not only this evening, but across this fantastic season. We'll be racing around various locations in Europe as we take on some of the toughest tracks, all laser scanned here on iRacing. From the mountainous circuit of Austria to the historic Monza in Italy, we'll be venturing to Germany twice, once at the start of the season and once at the end. The first of those two ventures takes us 90 kilometers south of Frankfurt and 1 hour away from the French border to the historic Hockenheimring. One track which some would classify it as a shadow of its former self. It has been on the global stage since 1932 and has stood the test of time, still being used in international service even today. It's time for round one in the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Challenge from the Hockenheimring. Broadcast director this evening, former iRacing world champion Hugo Luis, and in the commentary booth, myself, Lewis McGlade. Alongside me, Somal Aurora. Hello.
Lewis, I can't wait to see which way this series goes on, because GT4 racing across some of the best circuits in Europe and just the lineup of these teams and drivers gets me pumped up, because a lot of them are rising stars in the iRacing service. You end up seeing them in top endurance racing series. Now, to see them in a sprint format, many of them going out of their comfort zone and coming to GT4s, it promises to be quite a fun one today, Lewis.
Absolutely, we're here for some fun action. I mean, it's a circuit which is very raceable, particularly in GT4 cars. We'll be rolling around the season. You heard me there. I was speaking of circuits like the Red Bull Ring and like Monza, but of course we head to Barcelona in just a week's time, to Zolder, the one circuit which some drivers really do favour quite nicely. And of course, ending the season, as I said, back in this great nation at the Nürburgring. Not too far away, realistically, but quite a long way down the road. And of course, we've got tomorrow's action to play out as well when we head to the Sprint Masters, which will be fantastic in itself. But focusing here today, we've got two races, Somil, and each car has two drivers. You've got to play out your tactics quite nicely. It's going to be hard work.
It actually is going to be, right? Because now the driver who qualifies in the first qualifying, a 20-minute session, this one, will not be the one starting race number one. They have to go in second, and there will be a particular pit window from minute 25 to 35. And you can go in there and change your drivers. Some moves can be made in terms of strategy there. Some might opt to go for some fuel in. Tires, I think, mostly are going to be taken on, but it just brings about a different dynamic. It could very well be a race of two parts. And as if there wasn't a second opportunity, if you got things wrong in the first one, we also have a second qualifying. No reverse grid shenanigans right here. A straight second qualifying, then we go to race number 2. But the driver who qualified for the second qualifying is going to be the one starting second. It's a fun dynamic, this one, Lewis. It sort of adds a lot of psychological elements into the racing. And the fact that the races are 1 hour long just gives it enough time for things to mature. It's not too fast. The action is not coming at you deliberately all the time. You can wait for things to mature. And I think that can bring us some really good racing over the course of the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think also for some of these teams, we're seeing it on screen at the moment with the SimRC bunch. We've also got a couple of Fiercely Forward, a couple of Maniti cars as well. I think there's simracing.de cars as well. We've got a couple of. I get the vibe that having a team, having a teammate on the grid and working as a pair to head through the field, that could be crucial, especially if you've got a couple of drivers of differing ability, and some may favour qualifying more than others.
And that's actually very, very true. And to add another dynamic to the whole thing, many teams have come up with multiple different entries of their own. So Maniti Racing have a couple of them, VRS have 3, Core Sim Racing have 2 of them as well, so have SimRC. Now, in terms of working with the teammates, that can be something extra special, but someone like Maniti Racing, they've got one car in the Porsche and one in the BMW. They've opted to split things up in terms of the car selection. How can they work together? And that sort of dynamic makes it a lot of fun to watch though, as where one of their cars might be up ahead, one of their cars might be slightly behind. So how do you work out in those sort of team games?
Exactly, you got to play things in a sense. You know, you got to think of the championship game. Very, very early stages, so we shan't be going into that. Although we do know that I love to speak my way about some championship implications. But again, a fair way off at the moment as we're in practice, building up into qualifying, which will be coming up in a moment. The first qualifying of the evening. It is SimRC's number 76 that's on pole position. That's topping the session rather. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Felix Luding behind the wheel of that. So we know that SimRC is an incredibly strong outfit, but let's take a look at what we're seeing here. We're seeing the cars and teams almost working together in practice because just up the road is Felix Luding. They're trying to slipstream off of each other.
And why wouldn't they? If they've got the strength in the numbers, they will try and use that to their advantage. And that's the fun thing with SimRC, having multiple cars, and the best thing for them is that both of them are Porsches in this case. And it should help. Hockenheim, of course, a long circuit, and traditionally you might not associate Hockenheim in this particular layout with long straights, but there are many opportunities where that drafting can play out, and this is just a perfect opportunity for SimRC. But that could change now in qualifying.
It's going to be a tight qualifying for sure. We know that these GT4s, they're more of an open spec racing car. It's one that's supposed to be more approachable, but the difficulty of this car, it's surprising. It really is. When you get in behind the wheel, it does slip and cycle. Like, you do really have to wrestle it.
Yeah, exactly. I was stupid enough to make the error of starting out with GT4s first before GT3s on the iRacing service.
Right.
I thought that it's slightly slower, it might be easier to drive, I think it'll be fun, and the moment you get into one of those Caymans, or even for that matter the McLaren, oh my goodness, it is a hard nut to crack GT4 cars. It's deceptively quick, this one. It may not look as fast on the broadcast screens, but when you're getting into driving it, it can actually demand a lot from you mentally. And that's because primarily in the corners, these cars can be so slippery. Even the BMW M4 that is traditionally not known to be a corner car, even that can be very demanding to drive on the whole. So it may look slower, but honestly, the challenge is right up there. And I think that's what's very special to see here, is the fact that these are very similar to all the sports cars that you see on your local racing circuits, if you do have a local racing circuit, by the way, or on your roads as well. There's no extra funky aero bits or anything like that. I think it just makes it a little bit more relatable.
Absolutely, there is that sort of, again, like that relatability, again, the approachability of it. Yeah, make no mistake, these are tricky cars to drive, and that is why you see the very best behind the wheel at the moment. In this qualifying session, we are seeing Core ahead of one of the SimRC cars, all Caymans up towards the front. It's Marius Golombek, who is in that lead Core car with Styx just behind. Felix Luding, who topped the practice session just prior, getting a nice whiff of slipstream. But look at that, a little bit of a mistake, or potentially even an intentional one from Pascal Styx, trying to push back the cars behind. I mean, maybe it was an honest mistake, but if it wasn't, kind of a smart move.
Exactly, and the gamesmanship is already on in qualifying,
Right.
Lewis. They can't even wait for a couple of minutes, right? They've gone in there and they've started everything out right now. And why wouldn't they? Fun to see this Porsche draft train coming in already, and I wonder how much it'll distract Felix Luding to have that car right there, because right now he seemingly has the pace to get ahead in qualifying, but he's backing off.
Yeah, was feeling that it was way too close to the rear end of that, and allows the Radicals online track racer car of Benjamin Hackson to get through. I've not raced with Benjamin Hackson for probably about 5 or 6 years. I don't know if he still lives in the Channel Islands, but I was originally from, and I best get this right, I'm pretty sure it was Guernsey, not Jersey, but is a driver who's come to the fore on iRacing, has raced various places in sim racing on various formats, but after taking on iRacing, I think more particularly around sort of like 2014, has really come to grips with it, more so in or at least in recent in the past, more so in front wheel drive cars, but quite clearly that applies to whatever is he's put behind the wheel.
Exactly. It's good to see Benjamin coming out right here and giving GT4s a shout as well. And it's interesting that the Radicals Online Track Racer team have ended up choosing the McLaren. Now, in terms of popularity, it was a fairly decent car. Nothing like the Porsche per se, but 8 entries in terms of the McLaren. So good to see the Track Racer team coming out here and trying. And I wonder how well they're able to do it, because pre-qualifying was a couple of weeks ago. Everyone has got good time to prepare. Now, Benjamin, usually a front-wheel drive racer, this is going to be some challenge for him.
Yeah, directly behind him will be a fan favourite indeed, Rebecca Pauline. They're just coming round to set times. Although we came across a little bit of information about the fiercely forward IRS car, didn't we? I mean, you probably know a bit more about it than me, but a bit of a shame already.
Yeah, unfortunately, registering into the session with the wrong numbers, and that's of course not allowed in the rules. So they will be facing a drive-through penalty in the first race, which is honestly a bit of a shame because they were the ones topping out pre-qualifying for the 570S McLaren GT4 car. So I was really keen to see what sort of pace they have, but I guess we'll have to wait for a little bit to see what it's going to be all about for them.
Yeah, and also, as you can tell by your timesheet there, topping the session at present as well, getting a decent amount of slipstream from Ben Hackison and the cars ahead, so decent effort as Hackison, I believe, is the one getting out of the way. Jamie Moon currently on screen and the focus of it, yet to set a time. A few cars yet to set a time, those being the Sim RC cars, one of the core Sim Racing cars, that one being of Marius Gollenbeck, who hopped out of the way. You've got the fiercely forward Tricolor car, as well as the Aztec Sim Sports Volante Racing. I believe they were supposed to have 2 on the grid, if I remember correctly, but they are missing one.
Yeah, exactly. Not both of the Volante cars not making it through seemingly, so they were having the blue car and the red car taking part. Bit of a shame not to see that, but yeah, there's that. The red machine is not here. That's because it's very simple, to be honest, unfortunately. Matthias Berg was actually having a few shifts at work that he couldn't quite postpone. So that's the reason why the Volante Racing red car is not taking part today, which is a bit of a shame because they seemed very competitive. And I like to see the look of Matthias Berg and Matthias Jensen. I saw them in the Porsche Sport Carrera Cup, both of them recently that concluded, and both of them having a lot of pace and potential, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame as well because, I mean, you've got to feel bad for the guy. He's going to feel terrible that, of course, you know, work commitments, they get in the way. That's just life. But you're going to feel like you've let down your teammate, aren't you?
Somewhat, yeah. I had a chat with him. He really seemed sort of unhappy for it. They were looking for a teammate to come in, but they couldn't quite get it done, unfortunately. So instead of just them losing out potential pace, losing out potential points here big time, just by not taking part, unfortunately.
Yeah, on board with the fiercely forward Tricolor car, getting a decent amount of slipstream from the RSR vehicle that's just ahead. I've got to say, I do also a little bit deep on the brakes and making contact and going for a spin. Not the way you want to start your session, so try and probably return to pit lane after that. But I do really like myself, the shape of the McLaren.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It honestly is. It was such a wonderful surprise when iRacing just said, oh, here you go, take your McLaren, have a good day, dear members. And I think it just happens to be the most supercar-esque of all GT4 cars. The M4, I mean, it looks like an M4. What else does an M4 look like?
It's chunky.
It's chunky, exactly. The Porsche, it's a Porsche, but it doesn't have that same character, right? The 718 that, say, something like a 911 would have. But the McLaren, it adds a certain X factor to it. You can't quite put a finger on it and say what it really is, but it looks a lot more sharp and a lot more dynamic, a lot more like what a racing car should really look like.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks fantastic. A reminder, though, that as we were saying before, that the drivers that are taking part in this session, one of the nuances of the series is that these drivers that are qualifying, they will not be starting the race. I like that. I like that idea of let's get them to qualify. So then when it comes to start of the race, we're going to switch it up. And we've got 2 races across the evening, so obviously they will start the second race. It's just that interesting dynamic to see how that's going to unfold. You're basically putting in a driver which isn't necessarily fresh in the car.
So that is quite true, but it's turned out to be something quite fun. That
Agree.
Most of the teams have ended up picking their driver that was faster in pre-qualifying to do this particular run, which means that their quote-unquote second driver will be the one qualifying for race number 2. And remember, there's no reverse grid and there's nothing like that. Points are equally distributed. Seems like most teams are just putting more weight on their quote-unquote second driver to start this one. So they're banking on a lot. It's not like you can run and hide any which way. It's not like certain series that'll have a reverse grid in the second race so that you can favor a certain type of driving style of a certain driver. No, everyone has to share the responsibility equally in both of these races. It just brings everyone to the foray. It makes it more of a team game rather than just relying on more on one driver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the idea that you've got to take a gamble, you've got to figure it out. If you know your primary driver's a couple of tenths faster, maybe you do want them to do, rather than doing the first qualifying, if you're expecting everyone else to use their fastest driver in the first session, you might want to turn that around and use the fastest driver in the second session, where pole position might be easier, and then starting that on high. But obviously everyone wants to kick off the season in the best possible way. Everyone wants that first pole position because it's so crucial to championship momentum.
Exactly, that's the approach that Fiercely Forward have gone with. That's the same approach that SimRC have gone with, that you can see on the screen right now. Other teams not going for a very similar approach. simracing, the second one, by the way, they've not gone for Maxime Ramstein as their primary driver, but the first simracing car have gone for Pascal Stix, who was by quite a margin the faster one in pre-qualifying. So interesting to see this dynamic shape out between two different entries in the same team as well, for that matter. Good to see disagreements on both sides.
Well, you know, like I say, you're a gambler at the start of the season. You've really, I know it's a short season, but you've got nothing really to lose. So you might as well take a gamble and see how things play out, whether that is putting your fastest driver in this session or spreading it out into the second one. I will say there is one team, which is Felix Luding, who is currently just jumped up into fourth spot. They topped the practice session coming into this. I said before, just to throw out some times for you so that we're kind of aware of what ballpark we're in and what ballpark we need to be in. The pole time at the moment, as you can see on your screen, is 145.195. In practice, Luding did a 45.026, suggesting that there is more pace in the tank.
Oh yes, that just makes you wonder. That just makes you wonder what sort of qualifying lap he will come up with. And is it surprising that you're seeing Felix Luding right somewhere near the top of the field? I don't think so. I think they've won so many championships together with SimRC, largely in the DCR car, by the way. Luding and Frank, of course, quite the pair in the 24H esports series, but jumping to GT4s for the first time here, by the way, Lewis, and seemingly, I think they've put some enough hours in.
Yeah, matching to it very, very nicely indeed. As it's just kind of one of those things where if you're comfortable with a certain car, it's hard to break out of it. You know, it's hard to go, no, I'm gonna put that car at bay. I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna try something new, and potentially it could backfire. But the first bit of advice that I was ever given in sim racing was never drive the same car over and over again, because you never learn anything. So I respect the attempt of trying something different. Here's a driver who I do note that Core Sim Racing have only just started putting up a couple of times. I think the second lap is a little bit faster. But 10th place for Marius Golombek, would not have called that at the start of the session.
Yeah, I think they've still got time, luckily, on that front, and that is going to be interesting to see, because honestly, I expected more of that outfit as well. But again, just keep it easy, keep it calm. I think they're doing something with their teammates, right? Because the other car has gone behind, maybe using the numbers game to their advantage now in qualifying.
Yeah, Golombek has a decent amount of slipstream, or giving rather a decent amount of slipstream to the car behind. Might see him poke him into the mirror, but it's not actually. As Pascal Stix actually comes into the pit lane, so that's wide. That's touch and go, because you know they've got to be careful with track cuts here. They can't push it too far because they'll lose the lap.
Exactly, that's the whole thing with Hockenheim, and the track limits aren't as bad as Spa used to be on iRacing previously, but it's something. But yeah, the curbs are vicious, by the way. We only recently in the Preventing Insurance series, we had a major accident heading into turn number 1, where one of the Porsches, I can't quite remember which one, they got on that sausage, the nasty sausage curb at turn number 1, and they flew off, literally. Lovely 360, by the way. They got good points in the pirouette, but in terms of their race, in terms of their tires, it was all lost. And that is all that can happen with track limits right here. You try to cut it just a little bit, and those, can I call them the worst curbs right here? Because it's a German track and worst is sausage, no? Can I? No?
You can do whatever you want, mate. You fire away.
Okay, so the worst curbs right there, they ended up making their race the worst eventually. I tried.
Good effort, good effort. This is it. You got to have a little bit of fun with it. at the moment, though, as we're riding on board with the simracing, German simracing.de car. There's a couple of these, which, by the way, I think look fantastic. I was going to say this McLaren's quite hard to make a livery work on. Got one of the Maniti cars ahead. Quite clearly, based on that line out of the corner, not on a lap of high importance. Although he's trying to push it, I guess, trying to take the shallow line out and limit it. But it does look fantastic. Got a decent amount of slipstream.
I think they have, yeah. They've got it from an M4, and that's the best car to get a slipstream from, to be honest. It's an absolute beast if you can stick with it in terms of qualifying runs and slipstreams, because the M4 on the straights, it's a powerhouse. I mean, Leandro has just dived down to the pit lane right now, but if he was right there at the straight, you would have seen the difference between the McLaren and the M4 right there. It's a proper beast. And speaking of good liveries, behind this particular car, the German sim racing one, is the Alkentech NHR McLaren as well, and I think they've made that McLaren work quite well too.
So I was seeing this livery in practice. Now I like it, but I will say it does feel a little professional. It's clean. It's very, very clean. I mean that in a good way, but also it might be a little bit, especially in terms of sim racing, a little bit less racy, a little bit less sharp and spicy. But I will say, I will give it one bit of credit that it's liveries like this that if you use your mind and you actually like try and imagine it on a real world car, that is a livery that I could imagine on a real world car. There are other ones that I'm like, wow, it's a fantastic livery. Could I see it in the real world? No, not really. I don't think any team would run that, and yeah, there are a couple of examples. I won't go into that too much, but that is something that I could definitely see on a real race car.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think we've seen a couple of similar ones in British GT as well. Similar paint scheme, similar designs. Hard to remember which team exactly, but it's a beauty. It's very clean, and in terms of good liveries as well, right? Fiercely forward, how can you count them out? That Bumblebee yellow livery, but the fact that there is also SimRC running a similar color makes it Battle of the Bumblebees, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we can go with that. We'll go with the Battle of the Bumblebees. They are fairly similar as Rebecca Pauline comes into pit lane. Currently on pole position, but you said awaiting when it comes to the race. A drive-through penalty for entering the race in the wrong number. Wrong by 2 numbers, by the way. They're supposed to be in the 15. They are in the 13. Unfortunate thing. By the way, speaking of liveries and stuff, this is a bit slightly off topic, but when it comes to sim racing liveries and team designs, etc., and moving that into the real world, there are a couple of livery designers that have run liveries on real world racing cars. They've made the transition, done a livery for a real world team. Most recently was one who's done liveries across all of sim racing is Nico Barkley, who did the livery for one of the Bentleys in British GT, which looks fantastic, by the way. And it's just that transition period. How many times we speak of it when it comes to drivers making the transition between sim and real world, like Moritz Lerner and that lot. But there is that other aspect of livery designers and photographers and all that are also making the jump.
Exactly, and one project that comes to mind really is what BS Competition did with Turner Motorsport recently, in terms of the Sebring livery. So to give a bit of context on that, we've often seen real-world liveries come onto the sim, right, through apps like Trading Paints, where you can just get the livery of your favorite endurance racing team, or even for that matter, your favorite Formula 1 team. But the first time ever, I think, that we got a sim livery taken down to the real world in terms of Robbie Foley and his BMW M4 GT4 in the IMSA Pilot Challenge. That was wonderful. It's actually good to see that shift going the other way around as well for the first time now in all these cases.
Yeah, like I say, it is kind of like that. It's just that merger, isn't it, between sim racing and real racing. And how many times we spoke about the difference between sim and real racing. Well, if you consider it to other sports, like, without dropping any names, a certain sport where you kick a ball around and then its gaming counterpart, there's no real similarity between one and the other, whereas sim racing, there is a direct comparison. You are in effect driving. Yes, there's no G-force, but it's kind of the same. Either way, by the way, we're approaching the end of this qualifying session, and I will say that Rebecca Pauline and the fiercely forward IRS car is remaining in pit lane. They are electing not to go out again, feeling comfortable with the position and the time that they have done. Whether Jamie Moon will say anything about that for SimRC, very close to pole position, but you've got to remember that this session is pretty close itself, just half a second separating basically the top 15, and I wouldn't rule out anyone from setting a decent time here to try and eclipse that time from Fiercely Forward.
Seriously, look at Jamie Moon coming in right now. Barely 700ths of a second separating them. Is it going to be a faster one here, though?
No.
Right.
Not yet. Will they get one more lap?
I think they can, but the question is, have they got enough in the tyres left, though?
Right. Well, that's only one way to find out, isn't there? It's by waiting and seeing and seeing how it all unfolds. GermanSimRacing.de to the line. They won't have enough time to get another lap on the board, and I think wisely, even if it's for practice for later, understanding the conditions and seeing the differences between this and the practice servers that all of these would have been running around on, just remaining out on the circuit, just trying to get a bit more laps in the car, because a reminder, these drivers will be taken out of the car now and they will not be back in it for another roughly, let's give it an estimate of half an hour. Right, so that's quite a long time to be out of your car as RSR improve into 13th position.
Exactly, and in those half an hours, in that half an hour period, you can't quite go and drive because you've got to spot for your teammate, you've got to help out with strategy, you've got to watch the race, and you've got to be in the session critically. So, better get whatever practice you can.
Absolutely. By the way, being told it's an open qualifying session, it's my mistake, so they can actually finish the laps they're on, which is actually good. That's it kind of, I guess that allows you to focus on your lap, doesn't it? Because once you've started the lap, how many times? I don't know how many times you had it, where you've started a lap and you sort of saw it as around about 1 minute 45, and you're sort of thinking, can I even make this? Is there even any point in me throwing this car around at the very limit?
I mean, it's not like you've got to pay for the tyres, right? So you might as well just go out there and chuck the car in, see what you can make of it. Damages won't be carried over as well to the main session, so might as well just give it a try. As long as you're not hampering somebody else, I think it's okay. And I think most of them have followed that approach here.
Absolutely. Checker flag is out. Some drivers coming into the pit lane. The 68 simracing.de car, that is way too wide, and that lap will be sorted. I think either way it was still a 45.7, so it wouldn't be ideal anyway, but not a great end to that. Obviously, it's so easy to do it around the final corner, just push it that a little bit too far. So our focus will remain with Jamie Moon and the potential chance of eclipsing the 1:45.271 that Rebecca Pauline has done to top the session. Going to be a tough effort. Haven't seen the start for that, but at least the hairpin looked all right.
Yeah, it did. It's all about what we can do on the entry to this infield section. What's happened?
Looked a little bit wide there. Looked a little bit wide. Then again, far be it from me to decide what is the fastest lap around this circuit.
There's a reason why we're in the commentary room.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely can't drive as fast as anyone on this grid. Even Maniti, that is quite far off the back, by the way, the number 80. They've got 3 cars on the grid, 15th, 16th and 18th, which you'd classify as not great, but 2 of the cars are around about half a second off. The other one is quite a distance behind that, being the white car, so I don't think they'll be particularly pleased with how that session's unfolded.
No, there's that. Maniti White, by the way, 3rd in the pre-qualifying for the M4s. Seemingly in terms of timing, they were there or thereabout, but yeah, I think they've been struggling. I think it'll take them time to get used to the series and used to the car, and I think maybe by the mid part of the championship, that is where we can expect them to be a lot closer, because Maniti normally, you end up seeing them in the top 5 most of the time in other cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a session for some, but certainly is a session to remember for Fiercely Forward IRS, regardless of the penalty that will be heading their way when it comes to a drive-through in the race. They are beginning it in the best possible way, starting from pole position. Your order on screen, Fiercely Forward on that pole with SimRC's Jamie Moon in behind. The first of the German simracing.de cars will be rolling off from 3rd position, and Felix Ludding getting the other SimRC car up into 4th position. GermanSimRacing.de by ACV will be from 5th, and the Radicals Online track racer car will be on the 3rd row of the grid. Coming through behind, a bit of a disappointing qualifying session from Core Sim Racing, Team RaceSpot Sim Racing, and Fiercely Forward's Tricolor car that went for a bit of a spin down at turn 2 will be in 9th position, with Pascal Sticks only good enough for 10th place. Questions will be laid at the door for Core Sim Racing. Verdevel Sim Racing and the Fiercely Forward car, the 3rd one, will be from 12th, but look at that time gap, just 4/10 separating them. The rest of the field will see the RSR car with the Acetec Volante Racing blue car that's currently starting on the 7th row of the grid. Maniti Racing lock out row 8, which is not great for them, but still they can work their way forward, potentially trying something different on strategy. And the Alcantech NHR car with the final Maniti Racing car will be rounding out our 18-car grid. With driver swaps on the horizon though, Somil, how is this race going to play out?
From what I've seen from a similar series that I've commentated on previously, all I can say is it just evolves into a very, very fun strategic battle later on. The first 10 minutes are chaos. Later on, we get to see a few interesting scraps between a couple of teams. But after the driver swap, that's when the fun really begins. In that final part, when you know exactly what and who your target is, that is when you see some silver scraping, as our co-commentator Arjuna Kankipati would call it.
Absolutely. Now, with it being that sort of sense of, not really knowing what is going to go on, I am going to ask you as well, so don't try and shy away from this one. But also, let's ask everyone else watching around, post your suggestions as to who is going to win in the chat. Let's see what is going on. Who do you think is going to be on top in the first race of the season?
I think, in terms of that, I think I'm going to SimRC. I think I'm going to go a bit easy on this one. Fiercely Forward, of course, drive-through penalty might be coming in, but 2 SimRC cars in the top 5. I think that really helps them out.
I'm going for the German simracing.de car that's going to be starting on the 2nd row of the grid. Got my eyes on that. So the pace car is into pit lane. There is a start zone here, so it's not instantly out of the final corner. We've got to wait until we're down towards the start finish, and that allows us to bunch up, to close up, to get close, and to get ready. They'll ignore the green flag that is in the air. We are about to get underway as we head to the first race of the season. It'll be the Fiercely Forward IRS car starting from pole as SimRC is covering off the German simracing.de car down into turn 1. That was pretty tight there as he just cut across, trying to dink and cut their way through. Decent launch though from the top 2, but the German simracing.de car by Mike Wagner, that is a slow start and poor after being cut across.
Indeed, eventually fighting with 2 SimRC cars at the very start, and now he's being fought by the other SimRC red machine in this particular case. But talk about Fiercely Forward, talk about having a good start right here. Something about having a yellow car and good start just seems to be working today at the Hockenheimring.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Core Sim Racing, Oscar Mangan, you can just see him darting out in the background, trying to work up a position already from the start. He's going to dive bomb his teammate in the background and potentially cause some issues. We've got Carnage. That was one of the Maniti cars going off with the Tricolor Fiercely Forward car. So already Carnage, that looks, surprisingly okay, although I think he's really right. He just bent in a little bit. So not great for the Fiercely Forward Tricolor car.
And they're still going side by side, still having that potential for danger on the very first lap. And yeah, honestly, the GT4s might be very, very good in terms of their damage limitation, but still they're fighting hard, Lewis. I think we'll only have to wait and see what impact does that damage have later on, but there's a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. SimRC then leading the way, getting past the Fiercely Forward IRS car and taking the lead of the race. And they're going to try and use this to run away straight away, try and build a gap as a couple of drive-through penalties being dished out to those running incorrect numbers. Let's take a look then once again at what happens down here. So there's going to be contact that sends the Maniti car. Nothing they could do. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, unfortunately, the RSL by Primus Engineering car getting slightly hampered in a way. And it's not just one Fiercely Forward car, Lewis, that's got drive-through penalties. It's all 3 of them. All three Fiercely Forward cars, as well as the Acetec SimSports Volante Racing blue car, all into the pit lane. Drive-through penalties for running incorrect numbers. That is not how you want to start their season. Is that only affected in race 1, or is that race 2 as well? I think it's only race number 1 right here. Oh, come on. I mean, you've got to see for yourself, right? You've got to see how competitive they were in qualifying and how competitive they were in pre-qualifying as well. Bit of a shame to see them in that position, but the rules are the rules, and the German sim racing
and contact
car
with the teammates. That is not good, and do you know what that's going to do? That's going to turn it into a Sim RC 1-2. A dive down the inside by Hyman into the side of his teammate Wagner, and the switch of position is going to potentially promote Sim RC's Jürgen Frank up in a second position. Got to do it the hard way, but crisscrossed in the arena section. Looks like it might work out in favour of the McLaren, but a costly mistake that, regardless as to what has happened in that grouping, it has allowed the 77 to clear away by a second.
The golden rule of sim racing and the world of racing for that matter, you do not hit your teammate. Probably in hindsight, that was a bit of an ambitious send right there by Christopher Hyman in that 68 German sim racing car. And now look at the sim RC machine. In terms of damage, the McLaren does seem to be alright. It was only a hit on the side. I say only, but it's still quite a big one right there. But sim RC could not capitalize on that. But look at what it's done at the very top, Lewis. A 1.5 second gap for Graham Van Putten. Is there anything else that he could have asked for?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're seeing that in your mirror and you're seeing them make contact, just thinking, oh, right, well, time to run away with this, because the harder they fight, the more time they're going to drop, and trust me, that fight does not seem over. I'm pretty sure the other Sim RC car that is driven by Jürgen Frank will be desperate to get up into second position. Driver swaps will be coming into effect in 20 minutes time. Once we enter that middle 10-minute portion of the race, so between 35 to go and 25 to go, the pit window will be open and ready for driver swaps, where they'll switch out and they'll hand to the drivers that just qualified the car a few moments ago, creating that interesting strategical format. You were saying before that there was some of the teams are bringing along a strategist. Interesting to note that they're going to have a strategist in a race which, far be it from me to decide, isn't the most complicated strategy call in the world.
Yeah, that's true, but there's still a few variations that you can do. Perhaps in terms of spotting as well, so maybe easing off your second driver and having them work on this particular element. I think it's going to be fun. I think we're going to come to that mid part of the race in a little bit, and that time is going to fly, honestly, considering all the competition that we've got right here. But you're right, Lewis, in terms of strategy, it's not the most complicated thing in the world. There are minor variances that might give you the edge here and there. And because the grid is so tightly packed together, maybe just like Formula 1, those minor differences, those minor margins could eventually end up being the one that changed the competitive order.
Oh, in sim racing these days, it is all about the fine margins. It is all about the tiny little bits here and there. So, in that sense, maybe you do want that just to alleviate the strategical call from the second driver and allow them to focus on just preparing themselves for the race at hand. This is looking backwards from Wagner towards the Sim RC car of Jürgen Frank running through turn one. You could see how close that Cayman was running through the opening section, but also behind you've got the Team RaceSpot car that's trying to get by the core vehicle as well. So trying to jostle for some early track position. I will say for Van Putten, despite getting a 1.5 second lead, not gapped. That has come down by 4/10, so maybe coming back together again.
Exactly. Wagner and Frank are able to come together, and the best part is they've been working together. That's why they've not been scrapping too hard with each other. That is allowing them to gain the time. But now Frank is going for a send down the inside.
And making it stick. Oof, that was a nice dive. That was very clean. Hit the apex lovely. And to be perfectly honest, not to take anything away from the move, Wagner did get out of the way. Did not fight that one too hard to the apex, which is smart driving. It's not trying to waste time. If they're going for the send, there's no point in covering it off when the car's already there.
Exactly. At this stage, you've got to realize that there's a gap of a second the car up ahead, and realistically German sim racing have got the pace to go ahead and fight for that win. So no need to fight those silly battles right now, when really it is only one in the later part of the race. And how do you improve your chances to get there? Well, just let Jürgen Frank go right now. Just capitalize on your pace, just make sure that you come ahead and fight together with him. But this brings another interesting topic now. Two sim RC cars at the front, that's 1 and 2 right there. Two German sim racing cars behind them, that's 3 and 4. Drafting buddies, well, they're going to be quite an interesting topic now coming up to the middle part of the race.
Yeah, and if we can get Gabler as well, I believe it is, or sorry, Oscar Mangan past Gabler, then it'll be a core racing 5 and 6. So it'll be a nice tight little battle. But then again, you've got that risk of making sure that you don't hit your teammate, creating a well-oiled machine. And also, we've got a lot of Caymans up here and only a couple of the McLarens as well to battle in it. And that means that you can use the advantage of the McLaren whilst also not being hindered by other ones that you might be battling with. So it might be a bit easier in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. And the Porsche, by the way, it's been clamped down big time by the BOP. 30 kilograms added to the 718 Cayman. And still, we're not seeing the BMW being competitive. And the McLaren in certain places is ending up being that way. So I like the fact that the race control has manual BOP, but there's a bit of touchy going on right there.
Yeah, that was Gabler that we were on board with. So the Team RaceSpot sim racing car just making contact. And to be fair, not far away from spinning around the core sim racing car, as he's now being dived by Oscar Mangan in the second core car, and it could be core sim racing 5 and 6, but has to do it the long way around the outside. Not going to complete that move. It was tight. The door was open, and that's just showing that any sort of mistake, even if it is just rubbing the car ahead, is immensely costly. Look at how long this train is. Realistically, if you were to draw a line, it effectively goes back to 11th place. Right.
It's a bit like a crocodile pit, isn't it? When you're walking over a balancing rope that way, and the crocodiles are under the water, so seemingly things are fine. They don't look too aggressive on first sight because you can't really see them. They're maintaining their gaps. They're being respectful. The moment you slip, the moment you trip, that's when they're going to get right there. That's when they are snapping right at your heels. That's the fun thing to watch about this series. The sort of mix of calmness combined with a sense of opportunity. The moment they see an opportunity, they don't wait for it, they absolutely go for it. That's the fun part. And it's those changing gears that makes you a really top driver.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the kind of thing where potentially going for the undercut and actually doing something strategically. Obviously, you've only got 10 minutes realistically, but even a lap might make a difference in this scenario. If you're this close, one lap of getting out, getting a fast driver into the car may well make the difference. Well, let's be honest, they're all fast drivers on the grid, as there goes the dive down the inside, but way too far. That was so close to taking out the other. Oh, and goes for a spin as well. That was Squirek as well in the Radicals Online car. That might need a second looking at.
Yeah, Maxime Ramstein just locking up the brakes, not locking up the brakes, but missing his braking marker, going straight on, and that rejoin. Was it unfortunate? Was it a bit miscalculated? Let's take a quick look at the replay when it comes up later on to get a good idea. Here it is then. So that's what it is. A bit of an ambitious send from Maxime. I think he'll be the first to admit it. But I don't know what to say, to be honest. Just a very unfortunate coincidence in that case.
Oh, that is a hard one. So I'll pay the benefit of the doubt. For one, if I were to argue anything in that, it's not a great rejoiners, or running a little bit wide there. The 31 of Gambler, and then Oscar Mangan's going to gain the position. So technically gets past one core sim racing car, now gets passed by the other, going a little bit defensive. The Irishman down into turn one, who's been fantastic as of late, battling out for the ISOWC Championship elsewhere. So doing very well in the more recent past. But for me, that kind of rejoin, it's not. You've got to be a bit more aware. That said, quite clearly, the Radicals Online car could see where the call was going, and but I would have taken the assumption that it was going to rejoin sort of off of the racing line and try and get back on. It's a difficult one, but you've also got to remember that kind of issue happens so fast that coming to a logical conclusion at that speed can be quite difficult. So, I'd almost give the benefit of the doubt.
And put yourself in that situation, right? When you've locked up the car, missed up the braking point, you're going right there outside. In that second, you probably are very agitated with yourself. And when emotions get in the way of decision making on racetracks, it probably doesn't end up with the best of conclusions at the very end. Maybe that's what we saw right there. Maxime just maybe not able to focus once again after that, and it's totally normal, totally human. But when it takes out somebody else, that is when the issue starts to become a bit more prevalent. By the way, core sim racing on the attack on a German sim racing car. This is turning out to be quite the compelling battle right here, Lewis.
Yeah, this is Oscar Mangan trying to get by and maybe even clear up to the podium battle, because every lap that passes, that gap is getting bigger and bigger. Core Sim Racing trying to get there. This is where he got by the Team RaceSpot Sim Racing car of Gabler on the previous lap, courtesy of a mistake from Gabler, but no way past the German Sim Racing vehicle at present. Very wide through the final corner and sort of halted the run a little bit on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. That is on board with Gabler, searching the back of the Cayman. You get a feeling that a move is going to be inevitable, and this might be it, but it's covered off really well. And where is that move going to go? Oscar Mangan still going to commit to the inside. They're going to be 3 wide at turn 2. Is trying to go around the outside is Gabler. Oscar Mangan will have to search for the grip. There's still 3 wide. He's going to be told about that. It's so tight off. That is close stuff. But Gabler threw on both of them.
Exactly. Now, simracing trying for a sneaky using both their cars in a case like this one. It's a triple Porsche draft train, still going 3 wide heading into the hairpin. Will RaceFox have the edge right now as well? They're braking a bit later than the others. Contact is not made somehow, but simracing with the undercut.
Fantastic stuff, really is. I mean, it is not time effective, I'll tell you that for free. They are losing time hands over fist, but it is fantastic to watch. Now around the outside is Oscar Mangan. That's going to be way too deep on the brakes, trying to make it stick on the German sim racing car. Almost did so. Gabler, though, gotta give him credit, threw on both of them. Hyman left questioning what is going on. Mangan thinking, how did I not get through in all of that? Tight scenes, but boy, oh boy, was that good.
Exactly, and he did a little celebratory tail slide as well with the Porsche, did Lucas Gabler on the gravel trap right there. My word, did he pull out an opportunistic move in that case. Let's take a quick replay of exactly what happened. Gabler going to the outside, I was just certain it's not going to work out. But the way he pulled it out through all the way in, you've got to find those opportunities, and it's that case, Lewis, where sometimes it works out. In most cases, you just trip over from 100% to 101, and that's where things go wrong. This time, it's just opportunism and risk-taking rewarded perfectly.
And Ramstein as well was doing well to sort of back out and not impede his teammate and not make it fall right. So, you know, good effort on that, because sometimes it's just not really cool heads. Gotta say though, I think Hyman's struggling on tyres here a little bit, because pace has absolutely disappeared. Seemingly none within the car as we're riding on board now with Oscar Mangan. Is there going to be a send down at the hairpin? You've got to at this point. You absolutely have to, but still no way through on Hyman, locking up the rear wheels a little bit on that McLaren. He's got to get through.
He just has to. He's got the pace right here, but he's got to do that without being passed by somebody else like the last time. Probably will end up doing it at the hairpin, just looking for a better opportunity. Probably not. Here he goes for that send right there. There's a second sim racing car trying for something on their side as well. The outside line is not the best idea, but at least one of them is out there.
Yeah, going more. I was going to say maybe Ramstein was going to go for the move going to the inside, running through here into the stadium section, but didn't fancy the cheeky dive at Mobile 1, but backed out of it anyway as we run round the hairpin. It was, I mean, a great move once again. We've seen quite a few of those from Oscar Mangan. Maybe a day late, a dollar short, etc., because the front battle is way down the road. 6 seconds ahead of Oscar Mangan is the leader. Can get by Gabler potentially, but it showed how important it was that battle was going on for the top 3, who've pulled away massively. And for SimRC, it is a 1-2 at present, and they are 2 seconds clear of the other German sim racing .de car of Wagner.
Imagine how much leverage they end up getting in terms of the pit stops in that case. They cannot worry about the undercut of the overcut, something like that happening. Because really, are you really going to lose 2 seconds in your pit lane unless you do something horribly wrong, like maybe messing up your pit box? Knocking on wood that nothing happens of that sort for any team, by the way. But yeah, I think they've just built up that advantage for themselves, and it compounds later on after the pit stop. So that is fun to see. But still right now, what really intrigues me is the fact that the RaceFox sim racing team with Lucas Gabler behind the wheel had all this space all this while, because the moment they've been liberated, they've used the free air to their advantage, and they've built up quite a gap to the other cars behind them as well. And that seemingly is being maintained right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it will continue to maintain itself over the rest of the stint, we'll have to wait and see. We are approaching the pit stop sequences. There's once again near contact between Ramstein and Hyman. This battle for 6th position at the moment. Rushka, by the way, working way up 1 position, but a reminder that the number 13 on screen at the moment should have been the number 15. That one, of course, being the fiercely forward IRS car, has worked up another position, isn't necessarily too far away from working up another couple. I'm not going to say that a top 10's on the horizon, but I also would be, I'd feel you'd be unwise to rule out something knowing how fast they were. A reminder they did start this race from pole position, a drive-through penalty for them. The two other fiercely forward car and the Aztec Simsports Volante Racing blue car for running the wrong number, and also the fiercely forward Tricolor car has been into the pit lane where it does remain. So not great for them, but so far great for the other black and yellow squad. SimRC leading 1 and 2 at the moment. Van Putten ahead of Jürgen Frank.
Is where a team like SimRC can really stretch their wings, right? In terms of pace as well, they're lapping so much quicker than all the other guys behind. And Jürgen Frank is benefiting big time in that second 76 machine that you see with the red headlamps right there. He's clocking in lap times that are a couple of tenths faster than anyone on track in this particular case. But then behind, RaceFox with the clean air are also going much quicker. It's creating this intriguing situation where, because everyone is so quick, the gaps are just being maintained. And that is where the pit stops will come in handy. That is where we see things like having the right pit entry, for that matter, shaping things up so much, because the race could really be decided by a few tenths here and there.
Yeah, oh no! Oh, that was so close once again. A misjudge in the braking point does allow RSR through on Ramstein. That was very costly once again. And how many times have we seen that today somewhere? A driver in the braking zone just missing the point ever so slightly, nearly taking out the car ahead.
Yeah, Maxime primarily a 911 GT3 Cup driver, and he's just getting to grips with the ABS system on the 718 Cayman. In the 991 GT3 Cup car, he's a World Championship driver, remember. That one does not have any ABS, and he told me earlier this morning when I was having a chat with him that it's just a case of understanding how you work with the ABS, because you really don't want to be a hindrance. You don't want it to cut down your lap times, but also you don't want it to be in a case where it's a bit too little. So you've got to manage that situation out, and Maxime just getting to grips with the 718 Cayman in this race, and lucky in a way that nobody else was impacted by that.
Yeah, so lucky. I mean, we've already seen contact between the German simracing.de teammates running down into the hairpin, which actually, now that I'm thinking back to that point, that is the potential that could be slowing down Hyman. I mean, depending on which way the knock was. So you know, maybe that's where the pace has gone. It's only seemed to disappear a couple of tenths, and that would sort of be accountable from this. You can still see the race leaders as they run down into the hairpin. Maniti Racing trying, of the three cars, again, not being a great race, but the 79 car is trying to turn that on its head and actually make some decent progress as well, up to 9th spot. And again, it seems that there's more on the table.
Yeah, they've benefited a lot from all the carnage and chaos that's happened around them, and that's one thing. It's just a case of clocking inconsistent lap times, just building it up, building your confidence as the race goes on, and seemingly it's right here, because now they are behind the second Sim Racing car of Maxime Ramstein, and while they're doing that, the Sim Racing teammates of Oscar Mange, the number 5 machine that is, the number 6 machine, I'm sorry, that is, they are clocking in some phenomenal lap times. As one of the other cars at the back right there got a bit loose. Was that Vendeval Sim Racing?
It was indeed very wide and slippery and slidey. Not seen anyone drop the car, so that's at least a positive sign, as they've all kept themselves in control here at Hockenheimring, which I've said before with this circuit that it's one that people kind of drive around. They never assume that it's that dangerous. You know, you race around somewhere like Long Beach, or somewhere even like when we go to it this season, Zolder, which is a circuit which everyone understands the risks of. It's a circuit that bites, right? And you never assume that with the Hockenheimring. You always like, it's fine. And then it does bite. And when it bites, it does bite quite hard. There are quite a lot of locations where you can drop a car hard enough to end your race, as we've seen by even missed brakes in the big braking zones down at the hairpin and into the arena section. That it's one that does tend to see a fairly high retirement rate.
That's actually very true. It's deceptively dangerous, this one. Look at the hairpin for that matter. You come up, you get the exit wrong, just take a look at the sausage curbs right there. Seriously, if you ride over them the wrong way around, they can do quite a fair bit of damage and get your car loose. Then at the arena section, maybe wrong entry to the corner, maybe you get on the AstroTurf, spin it wrong and the car could be right there in the walls nearby. It doesn't look like a fairly dangerous track or track that could really end your race big time. Just ask Sebastian Vettel about it.
Yeah, right, absolutely. We'll say that the SimRC cars are separated by 0.3 of a second. It is very, very tight. Nothing is happening between them, and I will say right now, at least for the slightly foreseeable future, I don't suspect much will happen, especially considering the battle behind is quite close. German simracing.de seeming to be under a lot of pressure now. You can see them coming through. Team RaceFox and Core Sim Racing, the Oscar Mangan car, looking very fast right now.
They really are. Oscar Mangan clocking in some really fast lap times, and that too on a very consistent basis. I think it's the first time that any car has dipped below the 1 minute 46s. Mangan last time going for 1 minute 45.940, and you can follow along with all these timings on RaceSpotTV. /timing too. The link to that is pinned in the chat. Right now, Mangan seriously bringing the pace, bringing the heat to this race now.
And of course, as well, a link, by the way, I'm pretty sure Arjun has been sending it around in the Twitch chat, as we'll see if this move is going to happen. Most certainly is. Nice move from Team RaceFox, a solid dive, and it's also going to open the door for Core Sim Racing to go through as well. German Sim Racing potentially going to drop a couple of positions in the single corner. That was not ideal. Oscar Mangan's got to work for it, though, as we run down into the arena. Has completed a move and is potentially going to send it on Team RaceFox as well. Oh, that was a close send. Didn't quite work out. Gabler's going to hang on and once again making some decent progress, and now onto the podium. Sights set on the two SimRC cars that are leading 1 and 2, and there is the potential for that to be closed down. But a reminder that the pit stop sequence will open in 20 seconds time once we pass 35 minutes. Another reminder as well, as I was saying, seen Arjuna link it a couple of times. Reminder to you that VRS and Lego are giving away a Lego Technic Porsche 911 RSR per race weekend, and VRS are giving away a DFP wheelbase at the end of the season as well. There is a link, I believe it's in the description. If not, Arjuna's linking it constantly, good lad. Which to me, let's be honest, that is a fantastic giveaway.
Can I have one as well?
I know. Where's mine?
It's just insane to see the support from Virtual Racing School and Lego on this case as well. Check that out. Check out the giveaway. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? You might just end up winning it eventually in the end, and you might end up following some crazy action at the same time on the racetracks as well. Action so crazy that Team RaceFox and Core Sim Racing are losing time to both of the SimRC cars. Not that we're complaining for all the drama, but still, it's not helping in the long run.
No, it certainly isn't. It's a 3-second gap at the moment now that those have been past the race control, saying that pit window is open, and it is instantly brought into the pit lane. One of the fiercely forward car, that one being the IRS McLaren, is into the pit lane, so that'll be handed back to pole sitter Rebecca Pauline. This battle still continuing with intensity. The McLarens seeming to drop off a little bit on tyres, more so than the Porsches, which look very, very strong right now. Gabler in that third spot, Oscar Mangan directly behind. Wagner with no real answer to the two Porsches that went by. In the pit stop sequence, do they answer the call first?
Going to be interesting. Let's see which way they play things out right now. In this case right now, seemingly their eyes are just fixated on each other in this case, and they just focus too much on that battle. But somebody has to blink first. Somebody has to go for the gamble. I just hope that somebody does something different. We don't really want to see them all coming off each other, just going for the base strategy. And there we go. There's the German Sim Racing 67 car going for the first move.
Yeah, I did wonder if Wagner would be the first one. And look at that, the other German simracing.de car also into the pit lane along with the Maniti Porsche. So some teams, some biting instantly straight away down onto pit road. There is another car down there as well, that one being the fiercely forward tricolor car that is out of the race, unfortunately. So bear no focus on that, more so on those that are in the pit lane as we're seeing them race their way around. I am not sure if the undercut is a smart move, but if you're struggling on pace and everyone else is getting away from you, why not risk it? Why not try it? As we're going to see Oscar Mangan potentially going to go for a move into the hairpin. He is committed onto the brakes, and for Core Sim Racing, this could be up onto the podium. It was fantastic moves from Gabler to work their way up into third spot, including that double overtake a little bit earlier on. Brilliant stuff. But alas, that run does come to an end, and finally they are officially passed by someone.
Yeah, Gabler doing some tremendous defending early on, but right now he sees the bigger picture, and the bigger picture means you just let him pass, you let Oscar Mangan go, let him burn up his tires, let him do whatever he wants to. Focus on how you can come back to Sim RC. And just look at the way Mangan was driving. Look at his exit all the way back onto this particular corner. Just fighting the car all the way through. Driving a Porsche the way you should drive a Porsche. And I hope that he has enough left in those tires. By the way, when the drivers come in for the swaps, I think everyone can take fresh rubber, right? So it doesn't even matter. Just go all out on them. See what you can make of it. Will they go for the dive this time out?
No, they are not. Neither is SimRC. So remaining out on the racetrack, just continuing to circulate and potentially running around just in a comfortable spot rather. But SimRC will be closing in. Will be closing on their pit stop. But the drivers behind will be trying to close in. The question is, can they do it, or do SimRC have something left in the tank? Just to try and build out a bigger gap.
I wonder. They're going for the long game. It sort of works out, to be honest with you. The GT4 cars take just a little bit more time than any GT3 would in terms of warming up their tires. And why not, right? They've not got all that aero on them. Slightly less sophisticated than that. So maybe it's a better idea to stay out for longer. Stretch out your first stint as much as you possibly can and leave as little as you want to. Do the second driver coming in. I wonder where they cycle out though. I wonder what happens to the German sim racing team who are coming out, I think, right about now.
Indeed, this is going to be thrilling to see where they're all going to depart from pit lane and how close everything's going to be. Of course, Sim Racing leaving it. We've still got our focus on the Sim RC cars that are currently running around 1 and 2. And you can see there the tight approximation of course Sim Racing and Team RaceFox also in the pit lane. Also in the background rather, as we head into it. Half an hour into the race, so we've still got another 5 minutes. Now, it does seem that these drivers are quite comfortable right now. Are they going to bite straight away? Are they going to see that the other cars have been in? They're going to see the halfway point in the race and think, maybe now? Answer to that, no. I think they're going to try and see this pit window out as far as they can. As, by the way, Core Sim Racing are going wheel to wheel once again with a German sim racing team car, Marius Gollenbeck, battling it out at the moment for what I believe is 13th spot on the road.
Inevitable, right? Inevitable to see Core Sim Racing and German Sim Racing dueling it out against each other. It's only been half an hour so far in the season, and we've still seen so many incredible battles between them. How awesome is that? And a word on all the cars that have boxed, a word on their pace. Fiercely Forward IRS, by the way, would be the most representative of that. They were the earliest ones to box. They last clocked in a 1 minute 46.332, and that's very similar to what the leaders are doing. So not a major advantage in terms of the undercut, by the way.
Yeah, and maybe that's kind of the ruling that they're seeing, that, well, if there's no advantage in doing the undercut, then why bother? It's more so just to get into some decent track position, but you know how this works, is that you pit early to get out of it, to get some decent track position, to get some nice clean air on the front of your car, and the next lap they just pit, come out right in front of you, and that advantage is completely negated. Oh, using a lot of track limits there was Marius Gollenbeck through turn 1. They've got to be careful with pushing it that far, because they will get pulled up by race. Like surely that's got to be a little bit naughty.
Yeah, beyond the
Slow
point,
down.
those 1Xs keep on adding up as well. And there goes the German sim racing McLaren. The outside is a bit of an audacious one, but it does not matter. Their run was good enough and they've got the position in.
You have to wonder if Marius Golombek pushed it a little bit too far through turn one. And I was speaking of race control. Well, you know, it'll get on you and tell you to slow down, to give back time. And I think that might have been the call to Marius Golombek. So we've got a couple of cars in the pit lane. The SimRC 76 car that was running around in second spot, and also the Team RaceFox car. So Gabler and Jürgen Frank will be out of the car, passing it off to their teammates. And they'll see if they could gain some time and potentially even jump a position, considering how close the SimRC car was to their teammate. I don't know how hard they're going to be fighting this one, but in that sense, if you can gain a couple of tenths, this is the best place to do it, because there was only 3 between them.
And then they might just end up wondering, why did we not have the better strategy? Why did we not go for the overcut or X or Y, whatever? I mean, you don't want to see a situation like what happened to the Mercedes team, right? Where you have confusions over, oh, who got the better strategy in that case. So SimRC going for that route, SimRC are splitting it up. Now, most of the cars coming back out here in this case, because clearly SimRC coming up ahead of RaceFox, but that gap is, I think, slightly closer, no, upon first inspection?
Does
Slightly.
seem so. I mean, it was around about 3 or 4 seconds. We'll have to wait until they've all circulated out and got round. But I mean, again, I'm not going to rule anything out here for RaceFox, because they are in a good spot. It's 4 seconds. Is all bit of a hit.
Bit of a hit, yeah. I mean, that is some metal bumping up against each other.
Yeah.
That is what you heard in the background right there. And that is Marius Golombek, who still hasn't... Has he not? Yeah, I think they've boxed, by the way, yeah. That is Core Sim Racing just trying to get one up on the German sim racing car. Here he goes to the inside line now.
That's a send. That is an absolute send from Marius Golombek, but it may well just work out in the end. The send is complete and up a position, so dropped it, gained it, dropped it, gained it, and got ahead. So working out as our race leaders just on the cusp. This is the final lap they can do it. Remember that the pit window closes on the 25th minute of the race, so Radicals Online will also be into the pit lane. But who is going to be your race leader as they do enter the pit lane in that McLaren? It does seem as though the Porsches are advantageous on pace around here, despite even being BOP'd as basically, you know, in a fairly harsh way to try and slow them down. Still a plenty fast enough car, as would be kind of expected from a vehicle of that manner.
Yeah, exactly. It is probably on raw pace what one would call the ideal GT4. Light, quick. There we see the SimRC car coming around. Pretty well calculated, all things considered, isn't it? But the gap to their teammates is going to be fairly interesting. They come out with only, what, half a tenth of a second between each other. Core Sim Racing are also right there. The order virtually where it was, in a way.
Yeah, exactly. But there is one big thing that's happened here, is that Core Sim Racing to third spot, but way ahead of Team RaceFox. Like, way ahead. That gap was 4 seconds. I said it was 3 seconds, realistically, and after the pit stop was around about 4. And now it's out to 5 between Team RaceFox and our race leader. So realistically, now things swing to seeing if Core Sim Racing and Pascal Stix, if they are going to be the ones to close down the gap to SimRC, which at the moment they're the only ones that realistically can. The 77 still leading the way now. Jamie Moon behind the wheel of that car. Obviously looks fairly comfortable in qualifying. Now looking fairly comfortable in the race as well. Just the pressure from behind from the teammate. But will that last the next 24 minutes, or will Core Sim Racing be able to say something about that? I think yes. I think they will say something.
They certainly will. Oscar Manger in that very car was looking quite feisty before the pit stop came in. You've got to wonder, can Pascal Stix bring the same intensity to the table right now in his second stint in this one? Remember, Stix was the driver who qualified the car, as with all the other drivers taking part right now, in qualifying. So obviously, the teams are banking quite a fair bit on their one-lap pace in this case as well. So, if anything, we might just see a very interesting battle in that case, with Stix trying to push very, very hard and SimRC just trying to avoid, because they don't really need to. They don't need to do all the hard work. That already is done.
But are they, so, you know, final couple of laps of the race, let's go with that. do you allow I mean, sim racers, they'll probably just do it regardless, but do you kind of order your drivers to hold position? We don't like seeing team orders. We want to see some fun and some racing, and also, you know, first round of a season, come on. But you know, you've got the risk of potentially throwing up a race winner. I mean, we've already seen 2 different teams have teammates come together, so maybe not necessarily ruling out the idea of a third.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a bad idea from the team perspective to just say, hold your positions. And if they are capable enough, which seemingly they are, they didn't need a lot of things to go wrong for them to get to 1 and 2 in this case. If they just are, they can repeat it with the other way around, if that is the case. I mean, it is a very interesting thought to think of it, that if SimRC genuinely are that good, they might as well do it in race number 2 with the order flipped around. So I think it'll be a sensible decision. But on the first event, some teams just prefer to go the non-diplomatic way. Some teams just say, just right, settle it on your own, see which way it goes. Just don't kill them. Just don't kill each other. Right. I think that's the way SimRC are going to go this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the right way of doing it. You know, have respect between teammates. If you come together, though, we're going to have big conversations. But you know, so make sure that doesn't happen. But you know, if you're going to race it out, race it out. I see no reason why you can't. Obviously, you know, as a teammate, if it was the final round of the season, and you know you were talking about championship contention and stuff, then absolutely. But right now, surely not. Surely this is about racing to the limit. This is about trying to find the gap. This is about trying to win the race despite it being against your teammate. Because right now, once again, they're building the gap out once again to sticks. So it's out to 3 seconds. That's a lot of time to play with in a battle. That's quite a bit of time. I mean, don't get me wrong, it disappears very quickly. But if you're going to try and battle it out, why not? Why not? I think there will be something. I believe. I hope. I don't want this to be over just because, you know, team orders, you know, colours and keep in mind.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think because it's the first race, SimRC, I think they will do that. Again, it's just speculating that's going on right here, right? But ideally, most teams, they do let them go. But then again, you don't know about the inner workings of any sim racing team for that matter. And that's the intriguing part, right? You watch it unfold. If it was a Formula 1 team, you would know for that matter. They would say, okay, guys, hold position. Even if it is, say, for instance, a Valtteri Bottas leading a Lewis Hamilton, you have got to hold position because the cars are so costly. X, Y, Z, there's so much prize money, there's X, there's Y. Of course, there's big prize money right here, and the stakes are very high. But there's no financial risk in terms of getting things wrong. Of course, ego and pride will be lost, but you can't just let them do it. They've been racing against each other for quite a while. Both of these teams and drivers know each other quite well. Maybe they might just take the risk, but again, they're so experienced, all these drivers, Lewis. I think they can duel it out without losing too much time as well. They know when to block it off. They know when to go for the sin. That is the maturity that you need for that matter to win the championship.
Absolutely, and this is the kind of thing as I was kind of going to bring up. Oh yeah, we know that there are some teams out there, not naming names, that have drivers and stuff that get along really, really well, and they can battle out on the racetrack. There are other drivers and teams which very much not on that aspect, and you know, it's about having the respect and belief inside the team and not wrestling it too far in that variety. And that's just where it comes to, if you're a team manager or even just the drivers of the team, just understanding what's at stake and understanding how to race with your teammates. And that's where practice comes in. You know, if you've got teammates, practice with them, race with them, see what happens in practice, and just get that better understanding. This battle, by the way, that is currently on screen goes up to Marius Golombek in 5th spot. Not by much. The gap is building behind the German simracing.de car, the Hetzner one that's currently running around in 6th. But either way, from behind, you do also have Vendaval, who have been off the road themselves. You've got Maniti, and you've got the other German sim racing car that's not too far behind, all fairly close. And if something were to happen, you know, it opens a door to those behind even. I think we aren't going to see the fiercely forward car into the points paying position. Not sure what's happened to the IRS car since Rebecca Pauline took over, but they have lost a lot of time, because I'm pretty sure on the timesheets they shouldn't have been too far off of that battle. They should have been around about 11th or 12th place.
Yeah, Rebecca just doesn't seemingly has been able to get the momentum on, it seems like, because the timings, of course, have not been very consistent on the whole as well. You know that the pace is there, right, with the IRS car. You know that they qualify first. in qualifying. There's so much in that machine. Just, I think, the drive to penalty, right? That can take so much out of you as a driver. Getting back on that same feeling of calmness and just recentering yourself or refocusing back on can be quite the challenge for them. So maybe this first race, I wouldn't call it a dead rubber or a giveaway, but it's just a build-up to what we can potentially see in race number 2. And what makes it better for them is that they've got a small window where they can calm down, they can re-qualify, and they can get back in with the right state of mind for the second one, because the pace certainly is there for the IRS machine.
Yeah, absolutely, and the confidence as well. Because if I'm being perfectly honest, the lap times that were coming in over the early stage of the race from Maria Hrushka, who was looking pretty pacey, was again closing in on the groups ahead, was setting some decent times, overcoming that penalty. That's confidence, right? And that will translate into the qualifying session to come. And that's where it's sort of like, it's not a reverse grid. It's not anything like that. Like you say, it's not a gimmick here. It's, you're going to have to get behind the wheel again. You're going to have to qualify. The drivers that started this race will be the ones qualifying, and then these drivers will be starting the next race. So, you know, it swings and roundabouts there. Confidence will be lost if they're not feeling so great about this. Confidence will be gained if they're feeling great. It's a very interesting slip and slide that I think just adds something to this championship.
I wonder if it's confidence. Is it just a feeling of, oh, what could have been? It's managing that sort of emotion that really can be the difference at the end of the day. Because again, if you're not in the right state of mind, maybe if you're just slightly off here and there, maybe wondering about, oh man, what if we just hadn't got our numbers right or wrong? In that case, it can take away some time because you're concentrating slightly on the other place. And you might be wondering, well, how hard is it to concentrate on something else while driving a GT4 car? Because it's slightly slower, you slightly have more time to think about other things, and that can really take away a lot from your racecraft. So they just have to calm down. They just have to drink a couple of sips of water, get back on track, and just show what they have potentially showed in qualifying, that the pace really is right there. But what about the other teams and drivers? What about, say, someone, for example, like a Racefox, who know, for that matter, that when they want to, they can get pace that is slightly faster than the leaders in SimRC. Imagine what sort of feeling they might be going through, that, okay, we can potentially get a good top 5 result, and our pace seemingly is quite good, so maybe, just maybe, we could push the button very hard for qualifying as well. I'm very intrigued because in clean air, they are doing wonders in this case, just by not getting hit up by the Golombek car in the behind.
Yeah, we also, you know, you kind of think of other teams as well that have not had the most favourable race. Of course, a reminder back to Radical's online track racer that did go for a bit of a spin, courtesy of a bit of a rejoin. We'll go with that. You know, spin, you've dropped some pace, you've got some time, trying to build up that, and that could be a little bit of a stickler. But then also it might give you that red mist of, I've got to come back from this. Focus at the moment, Krosny, who's currently on screen, world of their own. Marius Golombek a fair way behind, currently running around in 4th spot, looking comfortable, although I will say Golombek does seem to be closing in bit by bit. Let me just take a look at the lap times. There was only a 10th separating them on the previous lap, so for Golombek, no real time gained. A driver who was looking pacey in practice. Yes, I know the course in racing car has moved forward in this, but again, Marius Golombek is one of drivers of immense time. He's been in sim racing for a very long time, by the way. I mean, I've been racing them directly. I was in the series below, but years ago, like I'm talking 7 years ago, and was very, very competitive then, and has been before then, and even ahead of, and up to now, of course, and maybe the pace just not quite there.
And an interesting stat pointed out by our world champion TV director for today, Hugo Luis, that he used to race with Marius back in 2006. I was 3 in 2006. That is just insane. The longevity of all the drivers here taking part. And also, the fact that we have a world champion in our production booth right now, just crazy. Blows my mind every single time I walk into a RaceSpotTV commentary booth. But that's the wonderful thing, right? The community aspect of it, that everyone is so closely knit to each other. Everyone has raced together for such a long time. And there's a mixture. There's a mixture of drivers that have been a part of the sim racing community, say, for instance, back in 2006, and many of them that are coming in right now. And to still see everyone so closely bunched up together all the way through, and having that sort of dynamic where anyone can bounce on the other just by the slightest of mistakes, I think it makes for some very interesting viewing so far.
Absolutely. Like I say, it's the history that we fall back on in sim racing, which adds the interest and intrigue, but it's also that prospect in the future by bringing in these new drivers constantly that are balancing themselves against the talent of past days, which is kind of where that extra mojo comes in. I mean, I'll say before as well, we were joking about it earlier in the broadcast of like, that's why we're up in the commentary booth. Of course, we're saying having a former iRacing world champion of Hugo Luis doing our cameras, as has been for a while, RaceSpot and all that. Certainly a driver who I'm pretty sure could return to the racetrack in pretty impressive pace. So, yeah, we joke about it, but I mean, let's be honest, Hugo could get out there and smash him, right? Yeah, exactly.
We're denying it constantly. Yeah, but that's just because Hugo is a bit too humble for that. But really, I've seen a few clips of him in the Grand Prix days, really, really quick. And it's this sort of funny thing where lots of those drivers of those times are also coming part here, taking part in these big series. Martin Crompton, by the way, back in the day, used to be so good in terms of open wheel racing. We constantly see him being some sort of a force for the virtual racing team, Coanda team, in the Porsche Sports Super Cup as well. It's amazing how things just come up full circle all the way through.
Yeah, constantly, absolutely. So this is the thing with sim racing. Every time I'm sort of commentating on a new series or racing, I was like, I've raced this guy before. Sim racing does constantly come full circle, and it's those additions at random points which do add your spice. Either way, focusing on the racing at present. Eyes are on the battle for 6th place. Anzaruti for the German sim racing car, and we've got the Vendevel sim racing car who's been in that gravel trap down going into the stadium section a good few times. Particularly that one time I remember back in the background where slipping and sliding through there. It's very easy. Normally that part does, or say normally, sometimes that part does turn into the rallycross circuit. I distinctly remember this part here. Someone getting through on 3 wheels. I think actually around here, I know some people are a fan, some people aren't, but people are a fan of Ken Block managing to get through into maybe even the semi-finals in the rallycross, maybe even the final. It was at Germany. It was a long time ago, by the way. In the World Rallycross Championship. It's a circuit which has hosted a lot of different racing, let's be honest. From open wheelers to GTs to, like I say, rallycross trucks, drag racing, whatever.
Bikes as well sometimes come across right here, and even those small national racing cars, right, when you have in those smaller circuits, those sort of can I call them 1300s? That's what we call them in India. And there's a bit of a love tap between both those cars right here. The German sim racing car is being hunted down by Vendeval, and Vendeval clearly not losing enough love for them. They're just gunning for it at this stage.
Yeah, they've got to be careful. Again, if they make contact, you've got the Mitty Racing black car of Rico Wenzel, who's not too far arrears of this battle. They're allowing Marius Gollenbach to pull away at present. And you've got the other German sim racing car. Their race started out quite well. Unfortunately, it has not gone to plan, whether that's down to the damage that they both sustained in the car-to-car contact, whether that's down to tyre wear and not being able to keep up with the Porsche 718 Cayman over the stint, or I mean, who knows? Who knows? Only time will tell, and we'll grab our answers on that at a different point, I'm sure. But at the moment, not looking so great for the longevity of the McLaren over the race distance. You know, it is only 60 minutes, but you do have to not drive it like an endurance race, but you still have to kind of keep that mindset of keeping the car clean until the end of the race in your head.
I actually love this sort of timing. The 1 hour race really brings out something special. So because it's not 45, it's not half a GT4 stint, right, in an endurance race, you have to stretch it by a bit. But it's only just by the quarter of an hour. So it sort of brings this interesting dynamic where you can split this race up into different parts where for certain 15 minutes you push up a bit too hard, the other 15 minutes you calm down and go for more consistent runs. I love it. I love that it's not simple, straightforward, like any normal stint was. In a GT3 car, 1 hour stints are just fine because that's what the normal stint is. But in GT4s, this length can really bring out a change in driving styles, with some wanting to conserve a little bit for some periods. It just creates that fun dynamic where some might be saving at one point, some might be pushing all the way hard. I love it. I love to see this. And Vendeval, by the way, they just have something special with Hockenheim, eventually winning the Krivending endurance race here last week. and now bringing their A game in their battle with German sim racing, sending it down the inside.
Oh,
There
too
was
much.
no resistance, and it was smart that they didn't.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no resistance, and that's because it was overcooked like a well-done steak. Well down the inside from Versa and away into the distance. Obviously didn't lose too much, but again, this is what I was saying. Keep your eye on the Maniti Racing black car that is closing in at roughly, half a tenth here, a tenth there, half a tenth here, a tenth there. That kind of stuff will slow them down. No, there's not long left of the race, but I'm not going to rule that car out from being a part of this battle. It's had to overtake a lot. I know there's been a bit of luck involved, but a reminder they did qualify 15th, 16th, and 18th. So that car has had to move up quite a distance to get inside the top 8, and the other car as well, the 78 that's currently running around in 11th spot as well with Tom Swyers behind the wheel. It is progress from them. That's a confidence booster. We're speaking of confidence and stuff, but for them, they're not far away. That's a bit bumpy, isn't it?
Really is. No, that's what we spoke about early on in the broadcast as well. Maniti Racing, for them, it's a case of getting track time. Normally, it's a team you would associate with GT3s or GTEs for that matter. And it's fun to see them trying things out in GT4s, but it's just a case of getting more time, just being more consistent, getting to be at one with the car. And that is something that's worked out for them. And they're more easy racecraft is sort of working out for them. But by the way, Fiercely Forward and Alcatech NHR dueling it out back there in the midfield. Good to see the Fiercely Forward come back after their drive-through penalty as well. But coming back to Maniti, these are guys that have been excelling in endurance racing. They know what it's like to drive in consistent lap times, whatever the car may be. You give them the time, they will claw their way back.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is the Radicals. Oh, sorry, no, it's the Alcantech NHR car getting by one of the Fiercely Forwards as they're going to still go side by side. And once again, returning serve with a position down into the hairpin and trying to gain it. Tight stuff, but the McLaren's got the launch off the corner to get by the Fiercely Forward car. You got a good shot there of the white, got a drive-through penalty at the start of the race. It's got 53 written on the car, and obviously it's the number 10. Big slide through the that fast right-hander, though, and going to hold the position. That was lovely stuff. Huge slide.
That is superb. Good to see inter-car battles. So, intra-car battles. Oh, I just get confused with that word constantly. Two different cars battling against each other. That's what it is. That is so fun to see. Good to see the strengths of the Porsche coming in handy, right? In those corners, the way they were just able to pound their way down the exit and get the position in over the Alcatech NHR car. Very interesting. A quick look back at this once again. Quite a lovely battle, this. Good racecraft.
Really is nice. Just enough room given there from Michael Yanni. Semestra, who was on the inside. Like I said, it was the slide at the previous corner that Yanni held was very, very pretty indeed. 5 minutes left to go. If SimRC are going to allow their drivers to battle, if they are going to battle, I'm potentially thinking it will come on the final lap, but there are plenty of other battles on the grid, including this one. As said before, Andaruti, who's got Bursa behind. I was saying about the Maniti car behind, but whilst they've stopped battling, whilst the Vendaval car has adjusted the mistakes of the previous lap, the gap's built up again. It's around about a second between them. Not sure if Vendaval just had a couple of mistakes himself.
Yeah, Vendaval, they were trying to push a bit too hard again, constantly hitting the back of the German sim racing car. Eventually that does take a little bit off you. Eventually you end up losing a little bit pace, and Dylan Burst realizing that probably is smart to hold back for a little bit, let me recalibrate, and then maybe strike up an attack for later on. Because seemingly that is what is happening. Slowly and steadily, they are carving their way up. They eventually lost some time, as you mentioned, Lewis, but now, look at this. Look at how much closer the Porsche seemingly is. And if they duel a bit too hard, with only a couple of minutes to go when this battle really matures, the second Maniti car, the 79 machine, could also get a good shot for perhaps a top 6 finish,
It is in the wings of waiting. So for Wenzel, I like for Maniti, there's nothing they can do about it. There is absolutely nothing they can do about this right now. They are sat there, lap as hard as you can, try and catch, try and pass to see what happens. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you're more focused on hoping that something happens between those two cars ahead. Running around the Parabolica, at present, SimRC 77 leading the SimRC 76. Nothing happening, and I do get the vibe that that is a constructed idea, that they're not doing anything because they don't want to right now.
Yeah.
It's not that they're not doing something because they can't. Because the run out of turn 3 down to the parabolic, through the parabolic or into the hairpin, it's a long run. You'd at least get a look in at some point. So, with a couple of laps to go, if there's going to be it, I think now might be a little bit early for them. I reckon it might come on the final lap, which we're going on to the penultimate lap of the race this time by.
And there's no worries, right? Tyres are fine. They've got fresh rubber in midway through. It's all about the driver. What can you do? What can you make out of your car? And this is going to be a very interesting battle for two reasons. Not only are we battling for really good positions right there in terms of the race, we're also looking at two different cars in this battle between German Sim Racing and Vendeval. They have both dueled against each other so far in this 1 hour race. Now it comes to an end. Like a good wrestling match, it starts off slow, but later on the finish turns out to be awesome.
Oh, a little bit of a mistake there as well from Anderuti, and once again diving to the inside was Bursa. No way through. This tight battling is going to allow Wenzel to be a part of it. They've got a couple more laps to do. Maniti are here. They are knocking at the door of gaining yet another couple of positions. They've been so good at working their way up this order, and they are ready to grab another couple. Deep into the slipstream. Again, a couple more attempts, a couple more runs round the parabolica and down into the hairpin. So plenty of overtaking opportunities. And to be honest, that hasn't even been where we've seen the most moves around here. It's been more so than any other around the outside of the arena section.
Which is crazy when you come to think of it. You don't really expect cars to go right there, but this is just the action of the SEO Sprint Challenge.
Absolutely. And we've also a reminder as well, speaking of the Sports Car Open Sprint Challenge that we're watching here with VRS, we do also have tomorrow coming up the VRS Sports Car Open Sprint Masters. 30 cars battling out for a huge prize pool. That is going to be absolutely fantastic and thrilling. And I mean, I can't wait. We're going to see some tight battles in that. If we've seen some tight battles in this, believe me, when the big names hit the racetrack, I say big names, we've got big names in this as well, but you know what I mean, that it is going to be hard fought in that.
I mean, just take a look at all the teams participating, right? RAG Junior, Williams, Kova, we've got Vendeval, Pure Sims, VRS, Quanda, PS Competition, Beeler Racing Team, Euronics, Core. It is star-studded. Inertia, Maniti as well. I'm a bit spoiled for choice here. It's too good. It's too good.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm not going to be asking for your call as to who's going to win tomorrow just yet. That one's going to be a very, very tough one to pick apart, and I'm sure Juno will dump that one on my plate and see if Mystic Meg can come back out again. I don't think I've been very bad at predicting these races recently. Whether we're going to get right in this prediction, I'd suggest right now that it's going to be a SimRC car. Which one will it be? The 77 or the 76? Felix Luding in the slipstream of Jamie Moore, running down into the hairpin for the final time. Are they going to hold position? It does seem so. SimRC that are running around in 1 and 2, they had to really work for these positions, by the way, but since they've grabbed them, it has just been absolute perfection from them, and they've just not made a mistake.
They have been superb, working together as a team all the way through. Not doing anything unsensible. And now, speaking of things that are not sensible, this is interesting. This is a sensible send by Vendeval. To the outside line they go. A great finish is on its way, seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be close here. And again, Maniti in the background waiting. We'll stay side by side as we race them out. Vendeval going to try and send it to the inside. Bursa going to gain that position. That is absolutely lovely on Anderuti on the final lap of the race then. Up into 6th position. Brilliant, as you like. Coming up towards the final corners. I said they had to work for it. They certainly did. They've kept clean out front ever since. And by nearly 5 seconds ahead of Core Sim Racing, SimRC will be departing the final corner to take the first victory of the season. Lights flashing, and let's be honest, that is a well-earned 1-2 on the racetrack to open the season here in the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Challenge. Battles behind us. Core Sim Racing come across in third. Team RaceFox, who did brilliant stuff and put on a fantastic show, in fourth. Core Sim Racing in fifth, but it's not over behind. Vendaval just about going to grab sixth place across the line from German simracing.de. Maniti weren't able to gain anything, said they were waiting for a mistake or something to happen. And by the way, I believe on the final lap, one of the fiercely forward cars had an issue, that being the number 10. They were ahead of the Alcon Tech car. We saw that move happen, but alas, it has come to an end for Michael Yanni, and this day is not looking good for fiercely forward. Is it fuel?
Is it? No. No, oh, I think it is. We heard that. We heard the car.
Ooh, is that an engine?
I think it was we heard a clutch noise in the background there. I think it just is fuel. It is fuel eventually. Oh my word. Just trying to get the edge, just trying to fill it right down to the edge, just trying to have as light of a fuel load as they possibly could, and they just end up coasting in the wrong way.
That's a real shame. That is a real shame. I mean, regardless of whether that's for 10th place, for the win, for 15th, you don't want to end your race like that. I'm amazed they managed to coast it all the way round, to be perfectly honest. So that's a win in itself, but that's a rough way to end what has already been a not great race.
Yeah, honestly, that is so true. And the fans in the background deservingly cheering the fact that they were able to make it through. That is the fun stuff. But it's a learning for everyone that even though you might want to push the limit just about a little bit, sometimes things can go over. And you've got to give credit to SimRC for executing not just their racecraft, but also their strategy to perfection here today.
Absolutely. The 1-2 for them. Jamie Moon and Van Putten are taking the victory from their teammates, their closest competitors, Jürgen Frank and Felix Luding in second position. Got to give a shout out as well, though, to Core Sim Racing. Oscar Mangan and Pascal Stix, they had to work for that podium, and believe me, they did. Once it came out of the pit lane sequence, it was a bit easier for them, but either way, third place. Team RaceFox Sim Racing with that double move put on a very good show for us to grab fourth spot, and Marius Gollenbeck up to fifth place for Core Sim Racing. Vendaval Sim Racing and the first of the German simracing.de cars that came together with their teammates earlier on in the race in 6th and 7th. Then the Maniti racing car who gained the most positions across the race up to 8th spot. Then we've got the other German sim racing car with RSR rounding out the top 10. Those behind that will be the other Maniti racing car. Radicals Online, question marks for them as to how good they'll be in the next race. They were running really well when issues for them as they got spun around out of the hairpin. Alcon Tech NHR gaining a position on the final lap up to 13th, courtesy of Maniti's issues, but they were closely followed by Assetec Sim Sports Volante Racing Blue. Two fiercely forward cars, the IRS and the blank one, the one without a sponsor. Rebecca Pauline, again, that car had moved forward, but again, dropping backwards, drive-through penalties for them regardless, as well as their teammates. Maniti Racing's number 80 as well, in 17th position. Those are the final finishers. Retirement for the race from the Tricolor car that qualifying didn't go well for them, and neither did the race. Brilliant stuff, though, from SimRC.
Absolutely was. Executing it clinically to perfection here today, getting a big 1-2 in the bag. It's just the best way to begin, isn't it?
Absolutely, it really is. We've got an interview to jump to straight away, and let's drag him in. Unfortunately, not quite good enough for the victory, but still a fantastic effort from the SimRC camp. A 1-2 for you. Jürgen Frank joins us in the booth. Talk us through that race. Was it high pressure at the end, or was it quite calm and comfortable as you battled it out with your team?
Yeah, good evening at first. Yeah, I think the second stint of the race was quite easy for the other guys, for Felix and Jamie. They had a 3-second gap to the core car and were able to build up that gap even. So yeah, great race for our team for sure. It's a really good result. Perfect.
Now, to not just instantly throw you under it, but you've got to do it again. We've got another race coming up. This time, you're going to be the driver that's got to qualify. Are you confident in a qualifying setting? Does this give you a bit of a boost, this result as well?
Yeah, for sure. This result will give me a boost, but I'm not a typical qualifying driver, so I will give my best, but I cannot promise the best result. So, yeah, we will see.
Also, final question. You had to battle it out quite hard over the first lap, starting from 4th spot, going side by side with one of the German sim racing cars. Pretty tight stuff. Gave you a bit of a gap to your teammates battling it out at the front. For one, how did you close that one back down again? Was that a bit of strategy from the team, or was it just great lap times? And for two, was it high pressure in there, or was 4th quite a comfortable spot to start in?
Yeah, the start was very difficult, and I mean in lap 3 there was a big send from the guy behind me and he hit the other car, but I couldn't go up to P2, so I had to overtake the McLaren myself, but the McLaren has a very high top speed. I had to send it into the Spitzkehre, and luckily I was able to do it. And then I was 1.1 second behind Bram van Putten. And so I was just in the draft, and so I could close the gap with a little bit of draft.
Wow, massive congratulations, not only to you, but of course to the whole team as well. A 1-2 to open the season, but it all comes up again as well. Another 60-minute race ahead of you. Best of luck.
Yep, thanks. Have fun, guys.
Wow, Somil. The race to open the season, things looking very, very good, at least for one of our black and yellow cars, this one being the Sim RC. I get the vibe, though, that it is not going to hold that way. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from the race. Of course, we had the fiercely forward car starting from pole position. Rebecca Pauline, who grabbed that one, was able to, I say, clear away into the distance, but it didn't last long because Sim RC, right over their rear end, were able to battle that one out and get through. For fiercely forward, there was a drive-through penalty waiting for them as well, courtesy of joining in the wrong number, as well as for the other fiercely forward cars, so not the best start to their race. We weren't quite sure as to how they lost it on that first lap, but they did lose it indeed. Drama as well, as Core Sim Racing missing the braking zone and dropping down the order, then making contact as well on the rejoin with the Radicals online. That would not go down very well from the McLaren camp. Then there was contact and a spin to the rear for one of the Maniti racing cars, this one being the 78, right into the rear of the fiercely forward Tricolor car that then ended up retiring from the race. It was a large hit, and we did wonder if the suspension was tracking in ever so slightly on the right-hand side of the car. Intense battles up and down the order. Core Sim Racing trying to apply pressure to the German simracing.de car and grab their way of position, but Somil, it was fantastic stuff in this mid-pack.
Seriously was. You got to see some crazy battling, and this particular move was the highlight. How did the RaceSpot team get it done around the outside? This was just risk-taking rewarded perfectly. It's these sort of moves that make you go for your sends on your local race on the iRacing. It may not work for everyone, but in this case, it worked to perfection for the 31 machine. And eventually, right, we got to see this crazy battle where Core Sim Racing and German simracing.de were not able to recover from it. They both could not get a hand on that RaceFox car later on. Tremendous battling all the way through.
It really was fantastic. Certainly wasn't done then, as the Core Sim Racing car went for a dive down into the arena section to gain a position, and then they would set their sights on RaceFox as well. But of course, pit sequence was looming on the horizon as they would be preparing themselves for an entry to pit lane around about the halfway point of the race, switching out the drivers. Bit of a mistake there in the background from the Maniti racing car on that tricky curb, which is cost so many drivers. It really is difficult. Battles a bit further down, the fiercely forward car, the IRS one, battling it out with the Maniti BMW. BMW's not in top form here at the Hockenheimring, though. Very much struggles for them as they just really couldn't find their footing.
And later on, we saw some fun battles right here in the mid-pack too between Core and Maniti. Good to see Maniti, by the way, recovering up quite a fair bit. And they had a bit of a tricky race, right? But qualifying for them, it was not very good. But the way they were able to claw their way back, is something that sort of is somewhat similar to what most endurance racing teams would do. That's where their experience from that side of the world of sim racing comes up handy. Take a quick look at the moves that they eventually had to make, and seriously, it seems like core sim racing was just involved in all the battles all the time here today.
Yeah, they gained the most positions, and we saw it. They were really working their way forward in this race, would eventually finish up in 8th position. But once again, they were not done with the moves. Continuing to try and make one stick on core sim racing, Marius Gollenbeck not at one with the car. You can see there's a fair amount of damage as well. The RSR car directly ahead, and German sim racing, the McLarens didn't seem to have the long run potential, as once again there would be battles between a McLaren and a Porsche just trying to figure things out. This one being Marius Gollenbeck, and of course the German simracing.de cars is around about 7th place on the grid. Vendevel as well sitting in the background trying to grab up that, and you've got Maniti as well waiting in the wings, as we were saying, to potentially gain the spot that unfortunately wouldn't quite work out for them. They were close enough to try and make something stick, but Hockenheimring is quite a tricky circuit to pass at. We were saying it in the broadcast, it was more down into the arena section that we saw most of the moves. That run into the hairpin just opens you up to being passed. Everyone's a little bit too cautious maybe down into that sequence.
It may be a Formula 1 grade A circuit, but seriously, you've got to make your opportunities work, and it takes so much here at the Hockenheim to get that pass in correctly. At the end though, SimRC executing it clinically to perfection.
Absolutely. You couldn't ask for something more from the squad. Really, really solid effort from Jamie Moon and Bram Van Putten, who took victory, but of course their teammates sat right on the rear end, Felix Luding and Jürgen Frank. We caught up with Jürgen Frank saying that things were maybe a little bit easier in the second half of the race. They had to work for it over the first half, but that's what this racing is all about. 60 minutes of intense action, and you've got to be perfect through all of it. You've got to set yourself up for that second half of the race, and they certainly did so. We are not ending this broadcast. There is more to come. A second qualifying session coming up after this, and the race to follow. Same kind of stuff, but boy, is the action going to be coming in thick and fast.
I think the fun part about the second race is going to be that everyone knows roughly what the pace of each other is going to be like. Can they change? Can they respond? Can they do things differently? And the fact of the matter is, quite often, that eventually does end up being the case with certain drivers losing their guard a little bit after the first race. They end up being slightly distracted, slightly lost in concentration. Others just gain momentum knowing that, okay, I've done such a good job in the first one. What can I build this up on? What can I do for the second one? This is going to be interesting to see who can actually maintain their pace and what the competitive order looks like after 2 races, not 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, considering that, and I always ask this kind of question because we were always like, they're going to learn so much for the second race. They're going to be so ready for the second race. But you've practiced all week, right? What else can you learn? What else is able to be put into the second race? If you've already put all your preparation in, is there something that you can learn from the racing environment that assists you in the race to come?
Quite frankly, yes. Quite frankly, more about how each team and driver responds, because really in a case like this one, when you're going side by side with each other for such a long time, you need to know which drivers you can trust. You need to know which drivers you can go side by side with. And that is one thing that you only can learn once you get on track with them. Sure, practice sessions are one thing, but when you're in this race situation, when the stakes are high, that is one thing you learn by just dipping into the deep end of the pool. That is one big learning. And secondly, it's not much on the track conditions per se, but about how you can hold up your ground in those conditions of the race, when the pressure is on, when the heat is on, when the stakes are high, say even for that matter dialing in a good qualifying lap. That is not something that you can do in your own practice runs. The feeling, the environment, the atmosphere, everything changes in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, that a bit of a reminder, whilst we are here at the Hockenheimring, we are coming back to this tomorrow at 1:30. Plenty more racing to come here on RaceSpot as the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Masters will be hitting the track in GT3s, ready to race for a prize pool of $25,000 rather dollars. It's going to be a fantastic race in that, and I'm sure you'd be mad mad to miss it. But whilst we're here, remember as well that VRS and LEGO are doing a giveaway. LEGO Technic Porsche 911 RSR up every race weekend, and of course VRS driving a DFP wheelbase that'll be up for grabs over the season. So, you know, what are you waiting for? Go and get yourselves into the giveaway. Again, I want one. Where's mine?
It's too good to pass on, really.
Absolutely.
Too good to pass on for a giveaway.
Absolutely, you'd be mad to miss that, and of course all of the action. With a race to come, though, again, we must focus on today. I'm going to say it, and I think you're kind of thinking the same thing. I'm going to ask you the question, which team we focused on more in this, but for me, I'm going to vibe might be the same for you. Fiercely Forward. They showed great pace, now they get to act on it.
Especially the IRS machine, the other two, the Tricolor car and the normal Fiercely Forward team. No, goodness, what is a normal Fiercely Forward team? But the regular one, without any extra addition to their name, they were fine. They seemed to be good for a midfield position, say somewhere around P8, P9. But this IRS team was what really intrigued me, because Rebecca Pauline and Marie Hrushka showed some great pace in pre-qualifying. They got pole position, remember, with Rebecca Pauline behind the wheel. What can Marie do in a case like this one? First qualifying for her as well in this case. I wonder how much pace can she extract from that McLaren.
Wow, there was good pace in the opening stages of that first race, working their way up the order. Again, I'm not going to be swift to judge. We did not catch up with what happened with Rebecca Pauline's race. But when she got in the car, the pace just... It just wasn't fully there, and that could have been through various issues. That could have been through contact, it could have been through damage, it could have been through an experiment on tyres, learning, trying something. We don't know all of the answers to that question. What we do know is that she's had pole position, she's fast. Teammate also very, very fast. So those two, like I say, I'm not going to rule out the ultimate recovery of taking a victory here.
But now you've just got to wonder, is Marie really good in qualifying? That is going to be an interesting topic to discuss and understand, because Rebecca certainly brought that pace of qualifying out there, but it's two different driving styles when you're doing it in qualifying and over a 1 hour race. So that is going to be intriguing, and more about what can SimRC do to back this one up as well is going to be quite fun. They've already got a win in their bag, and when you look back to qualifying, they were second and P4, wasn't it? They need a special effort. They would just want to build up their lead as much as possible. The feeling at this stage is not going to be like, oh, we've got a 1-2, so let's just ease it off a little bit. No, it's a very small championship. The more you can build up in terms of your points advantage, the better it is going to be for you. And what could be better than starting out of your rivals at a track that is notoriously hard to pass on?
Absolutely. I mean, like you say, it's a short season. We have 6 rounds, which obviously, if you're doing 2 races around, leaves you with 12 races, which means after 1 race complete, we're already marching through it at a decent rate. And those races, they don't come round often. Like I say, you've only got the 12 to play with. If you make a mistake, if you drop the ball, if you drop points quite drastically in one, well, you're going to be kicking yourself when we come to the season finale.
So true as well. And when the competition is so close to each other, like in the past qualifying, gaps of only under 100th of a second, really that close, you can't afford to slip up and make mistakes like this one. But what I can seemingly tell from this one is that the practice, of course, a little more cloudy, so temperatures might be dripping down for qualifying, interestingly enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Conditions will obviously play a key part in all of this, and the hotter the track, the slower you go. That works for some drivers. That really does. Some drivers like the slippery lack of grip. It works for some cars differently than for others. It's that kind of play, but that's what kind of makes the racing different, is that we have to follow conditions. Also, let's be real, that is quite windy.
It really is, and for a GT4 car, even more so. I mean, what sort of aero tools have you got to help out with this one? It's a proper, it's like a road car in a way. I mean, we've just got to deal with it, and it makes it even more loose, as if this car was already as if it was pretty grippy all the way through. It's already a very nimble machine, and that can be on the edge very quickly. Adding wind to that, I think it just really is going to be an even difficult challenge for them now.
Yeah, It's going to be very, very difficult indeed. We are in practice. We will be going through to another qualifying session and another race. Like you said before, and this is like one thing that I like with this format, we see it time and time again where the second race is 20 minutes longer and it has 100% more points up for offer. Fair enough, that works for some. I like it in some things, I don't like it in others. I like the fact that we have 2 races in this of identical length and 2 races with identical points up for grabs.
It just balances it out. It doesn't make any particular event feel smaller to the other, which is something that I quite like to see, in this case, to see that once it's split up, once both races are valued both races are valued equally, can you carry the same mentality over? Because normally we just end up focusing more on one and leaving the other behind. And what that does is, if that eventually does happen, it opens the door for quite a few other teams and drivers to pounce and maybe get one up in that particular race, which means that a championship could potentially be even closer. Who knows? It just ends up being so interesting. And I commentated on a very similar series with a very similar format for GT3 cars instead. And honestly, you wouldn't believe the amount of surprises we saw in race number 2. It changes things so much. Just having to maintain your mental concentration is quite the challenge here.
Absolutely, and again, not a gimmick. That second qualifying session, you have to deliver twice. But again, the important note that we did have was that the second qualifying session, you across the night, both drivers in the team will qualify once. So you're maybe your second driver. I'm not going to deliver it quite like that because let's be honest, but for most teams, both drivers are of equaling ability. But the driver that qualified in race 1 is no longer allowed to qualify. They have to start race 2, but the qualifying reins will be handed to the other driver.
Nowhere to run and hide is the way I'd like to look at it this way. You've got to qualify. You can't paper over your cracks in any which way whatsoever. And naturally, right, some teams have drivers that are more inclined towards qualifying than the others, and in any endurance race or any other normal series, it'll be fine. You let them qualify, let them do their own stuff, and the second driver can walk away. But not here in the Sports Car Open. Here, everyone has to drive, everyone has to do their own thing. And I think what it does is really adds the impact on the second driver in this case, makes it more of a team game, makes it more of an overall effort, which means that all those hours that you put in practicing have to be even more directed towards more things. That you can't just have one driver focusing only on qualifying runs. Everyone has to do it together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many times in endurance racing? I know that a 60-minute is not an endurance race, so I'm not going to jump to that kind of conclusion. But endurance racing, you're sharing, or any kind of racing where you're sharing a car with others. There's always, this guy's the one. He's our qualifying driver. He's the one that's going to qualify us. He's the one that's going to put us in that position, and they're going to be the one that works us through. I mean, for example, I've done my little bit of endurance racing, not too much recently. I am most certainly not the qualifying driver, because to get the maximum out of the car, even in a 20-minute session, which is quite long in comparison to others, it works for someone, not for us. But like you say, there is absolutely nowhere to hide. The team has to deliver. If you want this championship, the team has to deliver in every aspect, every single time, every track, every session. It's hard work.
And the interesting part is that the BOP will be changing constantly. There's manual BOP from race control in this championship, which means that quite often you might end up seeing the competitive balance change. So we're not seeing the BMWs do quite a good job. Race control might get on it, Race control might add some more ballast onto the Porsche or onto the McLaren, might see which way things work out, and all of a sudden, the BMW teams like Volanti, like Kairos Competition and the likes, could be more in the running. And that changes things up. How do you counter that? So not only do you have to deal with 2 races, two of them 1 hour long, and also having a break in the middle, but also then dealing with the fact that both the drivers have to qualify, then the fact that BOP might be changing, then it's completely different changing tracks, and then the intense competition makes it a hard ask.
It certainly does. Practice then completed. We are in the qualifying for the second race of the season. I'm just going to throw out a few things, by the way, whilst we're here. Core Sim Racing topping that practice session. A reminder back to the first practice session to show that it actually meant nothing when it came into qualifying. SimRC, the 76 car, so they finished second in the race, so good on them. They topped the practice session, but they only qualified 4th. So realistically, you can't read too much into practice. It is very, very close, but the times are quite different. Because in the fastest time in practice in the first session was a 45.0. The fastest time in that practice session, 46.3. Way off pace. So the track is much, much slower. And maybe this is what we're seeing here, people are jostling, trying to find that track position or just trying to find a bit of slipstream, might be even more crucial on a track that is a fair amount slower.
Yeah. And wind might be the playing factor in this case. Remember, this GT4 car does not work very well with wind. It's all of these cars, by the way, not the most aero reliant or dependent cars, but then again they don't work as well with the wind coming in too. So in this case, you are the traction control in a way, because even though these cars have traction control and ABS, it's largely based on what you can do as a driver. Very slippery, very hard to drive, very hard to contain and control. And dialing it over one lap, that is even harder in my opinion. So it is going to be quite the fun challenge, and this is where drafting really plays up in their advantage. But so far, I can only see SimRC using their drafting to their advantage. Not Core, not Fiercely Forward, none of them going on there and using their own teammates as partners.
There could be something on the horizon that may cause issues to this, as we're seeing the two SimRC pair ahead of Core Sim Racing as it was in the race previous. But they do have, and again, I'm not going to try and batter Maniti Racing White too hard, but that BMW of Maniti Racing that is ahead, currently driven by Maya, they weren't pacey. They were the final qualifier and the final finisher in the previous race. That time they set in the previous qualifying was nearly 2 seconds slower than the pole time. And if they're running that kind of pace in this session as well, they are going to cause a fairly large headache to those chasing. As in the background as well, I think that's the Radicals online car as well, trying to get by one of the Fiercely Forwards in this qualifying rather. So the qualifying, they're racing in this.
And they have to. They have got to get the right qualifying position for this one. And they've got to make sure that everyone is in that right draft train so that they have the efficient run. And the Maniti, it's going to be a tougher cookie in this case. So it might be a very slow car on the corners. But in those straights, in those long straights here at Hockenheim, that BMW can pull away. And when SimRC are going for a qualifying lap, that's the last thing they want. And look at it, they're facing troubles going past the BMW already. Although they might end up doing so in the arena section, by the way. But still, it might just be hampering some of the other teams behind, you know.
Oh, that is an absolute send as well from Van Putten. They may also be lining it up because realistically, the first, speaking of the drama here, the first lap in this isn't the most important. It's not the most critical. These tyres, they'll last a couple of laps. It's fine. So you're getting up to temperature, you're getting that core tyre temperature into the window, which means the first lap is almost one to scratch off anyway. So no panic at the moment from Van Putten. That time being a 47.285, a second slower than the practice time. Although that said, Team RaceFox 46.0 going faster than practice by 0.3 of a second, which was something which we didn't see in the previous race, where the practice time was never beaten in qualifying, and we're already a good way ahead of it.
It just takes a little bit more track time. At the moment, they end up being a lot more confident, is when you start to see the fun really happen eventually. And I want to see which way things go, because last time out we saw one half of the field qualifying. Now it's the second half of the field qualifying in terms of their drivers. Again, might not be very inclined to qualifying, and how much does that change the competitive order, is my opinion. And also when you add in the wind, when you add in the changing track conditions, there's a lot to watch out for in this qualifying.
Absolutely. So the two SimRC cars, at least on track position, have managed to get by the Maniti Racing white car, but now it's the Core Sim Racing cars that are desperate to get through. It is Oscar Mangan who's the next one to try and pass the SimRC. This will be curious to see what their times are from the two cars. Jürgen Frank, who's in the 76 right on the back of Bram Van Putten, and closing in, also having to pass the BMW. Might, if that was around the parabolic, which I'm pretty sure it would have been considering the lack of time loss, may actually work out massively in favour for them as they come around to complete the second lap. Let's take a look at what the times are as they cross it. Bram Van Putten, first lap was a 47.285. We're going to scratch that off, as I'm absolutely sure it's going to be beaten. But a 46.6, only 7th place. Yeah, sure, Jürgen Frank's right up there to 4th. I know had to get by some traffic, but that's not great from the car that was, leading around. It had a clean lap and also had the race win in the previous race.
You just know it's going to change. You just know they are going to fight back with another fun lap time. We just have to wait and watch in this particular case. Maybe just not getting the tyres warmed up correctly, and many teams and drivers who is coming in for fresher rubber.
Yeah.
Just maybe those sets of tyres were overheated or something like that. Maybe, who knows what it's going to be. But in this case, many just wanted to take the time, and they can do that because it's a long qualifying session, this one.
Absolutely, yeah. 20 minutes on the clock, and reminder, it's an open session, so when the checkered flag is waved, if you completed your lap, more so akin to a regular qualifying session as opposed to what you normally come across in iRacing when you're doing your 8-minute 2-lap qualifying, which we're all kind of used to these days. When you reach the checkered flag, if you started a lap before the checkered flag came out, I don't want to make it more complicated, you can complete that lap. So you're allowed to complete your final lap of the race. It's only when you greet the checkered flag that your session ends. That kind of adds that little bit to it. It means it's a 20-minute plus a minute 40 basically session, depending on when you finish your lap. We'll just say one of the teams that hasn't qualified, hasn't put a time on the board, Heimann at the moment in the German simracing.de car, they'll be looking to bounce back. They qualified really well. They had 3rd and 5th in the previous session, but their race did not go their way. I mean, we spoke about that a little bit, of course, over the previous race. Did not work out for them. 7th and 9th on the racetrack, so moving backwards quite a bit. They could maybe match the conditions a little bit better and try and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, they have to. Christopher Heimann looked so good in that first thing, but maybe just the challenges of battling is what got German simracing.de later on, because they're involved in so many kerfuffles they could barely focus on getting efficient. And as we all know, efficiency might be boring, but that is what gets you the results at the end of the day. And how interesting is it that the German simracing team were not able to do that?
I was going to make that point. I was like, you're talking about efficiency to a German team.
Exactly.
Like lecturing Max Verstappen how to drive a Formula 1 car. No, absolutely. It was, I think, it was a statement of getting involved too much in what was going on rather than focusing inwards on yourself. We saw it, on occasion, them playing the longer game, particularly over the earlier stage of the race, but you get lulled into it when you've got cars around you. You're thinking, no, I am going to fight this, actually. Why not? When kind of maybe discretion's the better part of valor, leaving your card to be played out a little bit later may well be advantageous. Either way, they're starting another lap on the session as we ride on board with Christopher Heimann, quite wide at turn 1. I believe was able to get it back in before the track excursions would get involved. Wagner directly ahead, although missing the apex of the second corner won't help the German squad, so not matching it with metronomic consistency in this session, and both lifting out coming around the Parabolica.
Yeah, exactly. Just waiting and watching and planning to go for a different lap later on, and maybe doing it together. Maybe one of the cars going in first, giving the trough to the other one. That is going to be a good technique. But what I noticed over there, turn number 1 as well, we saw a lot of those cars going slightly wider and getting a few wheels on the AstroTurf. Now that's okay, that may just give you a 1x in certain cases, but what it really does is causes your rear tires to spin up badly. And these GT4 machines, for sure, they may have traction control, but my goodness, are they hard to control, right? So it really is going to be some challenge for the drivers to keep it on the racing line, because so many of them are compelled to go on the harder. They're compelled to go and use every single inch of the racetrack. Just those AstroTurfs just make me feel a bit jittery when I see drivers go out there, because I've had a few bad experiences on those places.
Yeah, very, very slippery as Course and Racing enter the pit lane to get some fresh tyres. We focus back to Radicals Online. They are currently qualified in 10th place, which is not good, not bad, but after a race which very much slipped out of their fingers through the mistake of Course and Racing, they'll want to bounce back from that. Also, this is kind of the other point I want to bring up about chasing slipstream, and we've seen this a little bit. We saw it from Fiercely Forward IRS trying to get on the back of the Maniti car coming around the Parabolica. is chasing Slipstream really that worth it? To point out that the fiercely forward IRS car that was on pole position in the previous race is down in 14th right now. I think trying to search for Slipstream a little bit too desperately there, and it's the sense of just get out there and do your own lap. What, a Slipstream around here might cost you a couple of tenths. Well, if you can nail a lap time to get within a couple of tenths of the pole time, well, you're right up there in 4th, 5th spot. Rather than trying desperately to find that Slipstream, it not working out when you're having to start from the rear of the grid.
Yeah, that's true, because the Slipstream, of course, can also turn into dirty air when you're in the corners. And at Hockenheim, the track is so well designed that for every long straight you end up having this lovely section of flowing corners, but the advantage is somewhat sort of negated out in a way, or maybe if not just bending more towards the corners in that case. So it can work, but I think for some teams, like say for instance fiercely forward IRS, it's a gamble worth taking, because the gaps are very close in this field, right? The top 16 under a second, and all the way through when you see in the midfield from P1 to P6 basically, it's only a couple of tenths here and there. So if you can maybe just get it on, maybe take that risk and get that Slipstream in, who knows how many positions you can jump in all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to wait and see. Like I say, I've had it before. I've had it work both ways. You know, sitting in Slipstream and working into great track position, and it working out so well that you get that massive boost of confidence because you've done a time which you didn't even think was possible in that session because of the Slipstream and whatever. But then other sessions where you're chasing it so hard, and then every time you're behind someone, they make a mistake, and you're kind of just thinking, why didn't I just get out there and do my own lap? You know, this isn't Moto 3. You're not dependent on the Slipstream to set a good lap time in qualifying. You can do your own thing, because let's be honest, a good lap is a good lap, right? It's still going to put you in a decent spot. And hey, maybe even the pole time. I know Team RaceFox that currently sat on pole position at present, that time was done in the early stages of the Slipstream, but I'm not going to say because they nailed the lap, but maybe got a bit lucky that there was enough of a gap ahead that they could work into that Slipstream enough. No one made any dramatic mistakes, that maybe some of the cars ahead didn't even get involved, that it all just works out perfectly.
I mean, it's always a risk that you take with slipstreaming, right? You're depending a little bit on the car up ahead, and of course when they have errors, which is quite possible at Hockenheim, eventually there's a chance that you might have errors as well. And there's also another thing that does is that you end up having a case of tunnel vision at times when you're focusing on the car up ahead in terms of qualifying, and you see them doing their lap, and it just unknowingly you end up braking where they brake, turning in when they turn. And if they make an error, if they end up braking a bit too deep or turning in a bit too late, it's just basic human instincts that you eventually end up doing that too, because you're so focused on that car up ahead and you're so dependent on that car too. So you want to avoid that as well. But I think if you say someone like the VRS 53 car, you go for it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You've set in a decent qualifying lap time, you're in the top 10, why not go for a shot and see what happens? If you're someone like simracing, well, you'll be less compelled to do so.
Yeah, although you say that, simracing Oscar Mangan, following that kind of form book, driving around, doing a lap, at least from what I saw, the final part of it, as Maniti also improved with German simracing.de, looking a lot better, by the way, for Maniti Racing, up in 6th and 7th. That is way more like it. Obviously, the 78 did get a bit of damage in race 1, with quite a bit of damage. Well, it was hit very, very hard from the RSR car, but this is looking much more like it. The other Maniti car is obviously in the BMW they're not gelling with, whilst Aztec Simsports Volante Racing Blue can get to moderate grips with it. It's still definitely not on pace with the rest, so unfortunately I think for them it's going to be yet another very long day, but at least they can sit there and consolidate something that, and sit there happy in the fact that their team itself is pushing the brand colours a little bit forward, especially in my racing number, 78, which is, by the way, but fun fact is Arjuna Kankapati's racing number as well. We both have the same one at 78, so fun fact of the day that's not fun for anyone really. Final 5 minutes of the session, some teams in the pit lane. Corsim Racing jumping up to 2nd. I wonder if Oscar Mangan will return to pit lane, get some fresh tyres on and attack it once more, maybe sensing that pole position's not out of reach.
Yeah, only a tenth and a half, right? So it's not too far away. And for Corsim Racing as well, how badly do they need a win in this particular case? That 34 machine really, they could have been right up there. They could have been having a far, far better race than they eventually ended up doing at the very end of it. So for them, it's just a case of, okay, what can we do? What more can we extract from this one? It's going to be fun. It's going to be very, very interesting. Oh, hold on a second, though. Have they entered with the right number?
Okay, so I was wondering if someone
35.
There is a 34 and a 35.
But their number was 6 and 35.
The number was 6 and 35.
Okay. Okay. So there we go. That could be one big what's the word I'm looking for? One very demotivating point for them. That the number 34, if they really have ended with the wrong number, which seemingly is the case, drive-through penalty, slap bang.
Yeah, they were in the previous session. They were in the number 6. You are absolutely right. See, you do. Oh, well done. You pay much more attention than I did. I was looking at one of the core race cars. It was the 35, I'll admit. But there was some. I was like, hang on. I'm sure one of them had a single-digit number in race 1.
Yeah.
Quite clearly, that is the case. So here comes the question with the Fiercely Forward car. They've joined now in the 15. Is that right? The Fiercely Forward IRS right. So they have avoided a penalty at least this time. Oh, that is a shame. That is a shame. Wouldn't it be weird though if they did get pole position? It would be 2 pole sitters getting a drive-through penalty for not selecting the correct number. I can confirm that Team RaceFox are the 31. They were the 31 in race 1. So at least we've got that one ticked off for now.
Yeah, I did a double check as well. I think all the other teams are fine in terms of their numbers. And there's a very interesting comment from Craig King as well. Of course, he's kidding, but he's saying, when the race gets decided because of the numbers, how crazy is that? It is. It genuinely is. But again, rules are rules, right? It's like wearing a mask going outside. I mean, you've got to do that, right? It's just a norm. You've just got to deal with it. In some countries, you don't know. Again, lucky places. But you just got to do what you got to do. Get it wrong, and
not here yet. Don't. They are lucky places there.
Wimbledon says otherwise, but still, that's something.
Yes, I mean, so does the football, to be honest, based on what's been going on. But maybe it's whatever. To each their own. I will say, focusing on the session right now, half a second off of the pole, SimRC number 77, race winner, championship leaders, of course, because of that. Way down the order. That is not how they'll want to start this race as we focus on the Fiercely Forward 69 car running through the final corner. This one that's running down in 17th spot, so not great from them. You've also got the Tech NHR car that's in 14th. Radicals Online, they promote their way up into 9th spot as we ride on board with Oscar Mangan, potentially it will be the final lap of the race. But a penalty looming regardless. And not the way you want to start the race, but again, the mistakes happened, and it's one that can potentially happen again to other teams. I said in a previous broadcast that when we did the Nordschleife 24-hour a little bit earlier in the year, a few months ago, whenever it was, a certain team with a few fairly big name drivers accidentally joined the race with one extra driver they didn't mean to. This one being Nick Foster, Shane Van Gisbergen, one of their friends, and they accidentally added Dennis Lind to the car, who, by the way, has recently signed up to do Spa 24-hour for TWRT, but regardless, accidentally signed up with Dennis Lind in the car, so they had to get on the phone to be like, yeah, do you mind just getting in the car and just completing your lap? He's like, what do you mean? I've not signed up for this race. He's like, well, accidents happen.
Not a bad driver to be selected in the car.
Exactly, right.
Quite a good one. But word on Core Sim Racing, finally, I've just got something right here. And major thanks to Yannick Euro. I hope I've got your name correctly. He's mentioning that the 34 was taken by the Fiercely Forward Tricolore in the first race. So don't worry, the core is supposed to be 34, not the 6. And they are facing a hard time with Fiercely Forward in qualifying right now.
Yeah, that one not working out. That one being the Fiercely Forward Tricolore. So coming out of the final corner and to the line, it's not going to be an improvement surely, because there was an awful lot of time lost there. Now on board with their teammate, the 35. Okay, so that at least then, deep breath taken, does mean that I do believe we shouldn't have a drive-through for anyone.
Correct. That is true.
Hope.
That is true.
We do hope.
But we haven't gone through lap number 1 yet, and there could be so many things happening in lap number 1 that could maybe get you a drive-through penalty. Who knows?
Absolutely. Well, there's already drama in this session because, as I said before, SimRC, 11th spot. Not
Big one.
good. Not
Big
good.
one, then.
6th spot for the other car. Considering they were second and fourth in the first, second and fourth in the first qualifying, and then first and second in the race. Not good.
A biggie. That really is a biggie. And they were 1 and 2 in the race. They really need some sort of a comeback, but they'll not be assisted by any reverse grids or anything quite like that. They've got to go in there and do it on merit. And look at how much the order has changed, Lewis. Look at how much the differences are in terms of qualifying just because they've gone in and asked these other drivers to qualify. It's huge. It's mighty huge in this case. And fiercely forward IRS clearly the biggest losers in this case.
This is what we're going to see throughout the season. I am absolutely sure of, you're asking for 2 different qualifying sessions, 2 different drivers, part of the same squad, that it really does open things very, very widely indeed. For Core Sim Racing, they've taken advantage of this qualifying session and done even better than than previous. They, like I said, they qualified 7th and 10th in the previous one. Now they're qualifying 2nd and 4th, the same as SimRC did, and it's 6th and 11th for SimRC, so taking a reverse in form. But bearing in mind that that Core Sim Racing did get themselves onto the podium, I think it may not end the hopes of SimRC behind. So plenty of options for them to grab, plenty of time to strategize. A reminder that we'll be going to another 60-minute race coming up after this with the qualifying order set from that session. It's going to be a tight one. It's going to be a frantic one. It was all about SimRC in race 1. That does not seem to be repeated in this. Fiercely Forward IRS had pole position in that first session, and like you said, they are way down the order. The order itself, though, we'll take a look at it with Team RaceFox Sim Racing starting from pole position. Lucas Gabler doing a fantastic job. Star of the race in race 1, making fantastic moves left, right and centre and grabbing their way up to 4th spot. But they're going a few better now, starting from the pole. Oscar Mangan alongside on that front row of the grid with Vandervelde Sim Racing and Core Sim Racing, their second car, starting from 4th. Wagner and Jürgen Frank, who was second in the previous race in the number 76 SimRC car, will be starting from 6th place, and Tom Sveers for Maniti will be starting from 7th in the 78. Said it was better for Maniti. They locked out a row, that one being row 7. This time it's all about row 4 as Matthias Schultz gets 8th place for the 79. Fiercely Forward's highest car is up in 9th position, with Radicals Online Track Racer will be started from Benjamin Hackerson in 10th spot. SimRC, their race winners in the previous one. Van Putten only good enough for 11th spot. The German simracing.de, they're in 12th spot with their teammates a little bit further down the order. RSR from 13th, Alcantech with the Asatec Sim Sports Volante Racing Blue. Fiercely Forward IRS, pole position in the previous race, only good enough for 16th in this one. The other one being the Fiercely Forward Tricolor, who want a better race than they did in the previous one after being taken out and retiring from it. Maniti Racing starting from 18th spot for the second consecutive race after not getting to grips with that BMW. Another fantastic qualifying, considering the race did swing the order of SimRC in the previous one. You know I've got to ask it, who's going to be on top of this one somehow?
I really can't tell, Lewis, honestly. I like how Vandervelde were in the first race, very aggressive in their intent. If they can do something like that from P number 3, it will be a crackerjack for them. But then again, look at all the lineups. They've got the second SimRC car nearby, the German Sim Racing car too, and of course RaceFox, who were amazing. Really, this should be an amazing next start.
Absolutely. I think, again, returning to form of the previous race, I think we're looking at those teams starting 2nd and 4th. Core Sim Racing. It was SimRC who started 2nd and 4th in the previous one. This time it is Core. Get your predictions into the chat. Let's see how this one's going to unfold. 60 minutes will be put back onto the clock once again. We've got Porsches 1 through 4, and then you've got that McLaren of German simracing.de by Hetzner starting from 5th spot. A bit of of a big gap on the outside line on that run into turn one. The control is handed over to Team RaceSpot Sim Racing. Krosny takes control and will lead us down to turn one for the first time. I think Vendaval might have had a good start from third spot, but they're actually under pressure from Core Sim Racing. And look at that from SimRC going on the attack straight away, up in a fifth spot, potentially going to be making it 3 wide and grabbing a podium place down into turn two. They're going to have to commit this one on the brakes. This was a RaceFox's move back in the previous race. It's not going to work out from SimRC as we've got tantalizing action down through the mid-pack.
Interesting battling going on. RSR Esports are in the midst of this one, and they're fighting the SimRC car. But at the top, look at this one. Side-by-side battling between Core Sim Racing and here, the second SimRC machine. Interesting stuff already, but RaceFox having the edge are sent by SimRC. There's no carbon fiber touching each other. That is good. But huge. As I say that, it immediately happens in the background.
Radicals. I think that was Radicals again. It certainly is being spun around once more. That is a shame. So the hairpin really not working out in favour of Radicals Online, and this time it's Benjamin Hackerson who's been spun around. We'll grab a replay of that momentarily, but we've got some action to focus on as up into third spot Marius Gollenbeck has got. We're focused on Felix Luding. He's trying to basically grab fourth spot off of Vendaval, who had a great start and then just dropped backwards, sliding over the nose. The SimRC car, that was as close as you like. Faith and belief in the drivers they're battling with. That was fantastic stuff from Bursa, just hanging on to fourth spot. That was as tight as you like.
Yeah, the Aussie is pushing it in this particular case, and Vendaval with Dylan Burst, as you rightly mentioned, got a good getaway, but instantly they were being eaten up by that Core Sim Racing car of Marius Gollenbeck, and a quick word on him. What a start that was from Marius, getting back so many positions at the very beginning. And you'd love to see it. You love to see certain drivers taking the initiative early on because they know that the qualifying session was not as good. Right now, it's a Core Sim Racing 2 and 3 with the correct numbers as well.
Absolutely. There's some battling down here as the Alcantech car trying to get by RSR again. Door open for pole sitter in the previous race. This one being, of course, the fiercely forward IRS car that's sat on the rear end. Fiercely forward, a team and brand coming to the fore in sim racing, and certainly one that's a popular. They've got their fan base and they always come out in force in support of the team. But our focus must head up to the race lead because SimRC work their way up a couple of orders a bit further down into the hairpin. Whilst we had it 1-2 very close in the previous race, this time it's not about teams. They are battling it out between themselves. Team RaceFox and Core Sim Racing. Going to be a tight fight, and I think the other Core Sim Racing car is going to be a part of that battle momentarily as we've got the dive from the 77 SimRC car on Maniti, and that will be a move that has to be completed the hard way around the outside for our race winners in the previous one. That is a solid, nice, clean move.
Just watch all the drive that they got in the SimRC car right there. Watch all the drive that Fiercely Forward are getting in the back in that battle against Maniti. The outside line they go. Many careers and dreams have ended in this particular corner, but not for Fiercely Forward. This is amazing. Slinging back onto the inside line, and yes, Fiercely Forward are moving up against Maniti, but the other Fiercely Forward car has lost to the German sim racing team.
Yeah, Fiercely Forward Tricolor. Like I said, they wanted a better race than in the previous one. They've certainly got it so far. Don't mean to jinx them, but they have worked their way a little bit further up from qualifying. There's the dive at turn one. You don't see that too often. And there's the contact. Maniti going for the spin, getting collected by RSR as well for good measure. Off at turn one. There's another thing we need to check out. That kind of move down into turn one is bold and works out almost 0% of the time. And I'm sure that won't be appreciated from the Maniti camp towards the German sim racing outfit, so I think they're going to be pretty cross.
Yeah, both German teams expect a flurry of interesting words, but yeah, you can't really do that right there, right? That's Rico Wenzel being turned around, and poor Rico was so good in terms of race trim. Turn one really is in the corner, right? Turn one is not a place where you can actually send it in. It's more like a right-handed fast kink, and it was bold. Let's give them that. It was an interesting maneuver by the German sim racing team. It's not working out in that case. But a quick look at this battle. Alcantech and Fiercely Forward. Now, many of the Fiercely Forward drivers of the past have left that team and they have moved over to Alcantech. This includes the likes of Matthew Crisp and Kevin Zwemstra, who are driving that machine right now. So fun to see this dynamic added in. But by the way, Van de Waal dueling it out at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. 4th place at the moment, trying to hold back the 76 of SimRC podiums in the previous race, trying to match that feat once again. And by the way, as we complete this lap, it is a note that we have a change for the race lead, and it is tight, by the way. 1 second separating the top 3, but it is Core Sim Racing who have hit the front. It was a dive coming down into the hairpin from Pascal Stix to make the move on Team RaceFox to grab the lead of the race. Marius Golombek is right there and waiting. We might see yet another one too to open the season here in the VRS SCO Challenge Series. And like I say, tight stuff from them. And like I say, Core Sim Racing up to the race lead. I don't think it's going to be comfortable. Van de Waal, though, if they can close up, there's a look at the dive. If Van de Waal can close up, makes it a nice 5-way fight, but then you've also got to keep your eyes focused on the team that have proved themselves to work up the order in SimRC. They know how to make moves. Rebecca Pauline trying to grab yet another one and try and work her way up. Going to take a bit of a dive, though, into the hairpin.
Oh, yeah. Oh yes, Alcatech and VST4 have been dueling it against each other for the last 7 odd minutes. Here's a send from Rebecca to the outside line, but Kevin Zwemstra blocking it off quite well. And the point I was mentioning early on, both these drivers know each other so well. They were part of the same outfit, working towards the same goals, and now racing for 2 different teams. And so far, it has made for quite the compelling battle, because both of them have been dueling against each other, nobody getting a real edge. And one might be wondering, well, is this holding back Rebecca Pauline? Because we saw the pace that they had in qualifying. That's not where they need to be. I mean, for Rebecca at this stage, if she can get past, it can really help her out in clean air.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You know there's pace left in this car. Oh, a little bit slow there running into the stadium section. And is this a move? It's not a typical one to go around the outside as the other fiercely forward car, by the way, battling it out for 8th place. Ooh. This is not a typical place where we see side-by-side as well. Maniti dropping a position, fiercely forward, working their way up the grid. They are moving fiercely forward up to 8th spot. Fantastic stuff as the Maniti 79 enters the pit lane. Radicals online, by the way, after that early carnage. They are continuing. They're going to try and get round to the end of the race, but they are in for a very long afternoon because there is a lot of damage on the rear end of that McLaren.
Got to love to see the spirit of endurance racing in a sprint race happening right now. That is quite fun to see. But I love it. I love to see 2 of the most likable teams on there, VST4 and Maniti Racing, dueling it out against each other. Normally don't get the chance because Maniti is more into the GTE and GT3 side of things. But good to see this coming at class. Good to see this battle coming in this particular format right here between 2 of their rising stars as well. So this is fun to see on the whole. But right now, at the back as well, things are getting interesting. It pays off to have 3 cars on the grid because everywhere you go, there's a VST4 fighting against somebody. And look at this. Volanti might have the drive off.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't not seen too much of the BMWs as they're a fair way down the order, but we've got the Aztec Sim Sports Volante Racing blue car that's currently trying to make a move, and it is going to make a move. Oh, that is a bold dive. That is fantastic stuff to get by the Alcantech car. The Maniti Racing BMW's not too far arrears of this. Nice to see, by the way, the Volante colours taking to the grid. It's a team which has been built up. And certainly does get built further and further forward. A brilliant brand that has gone through a lot of chops and changes. And by the way, they've got some very good social media, Team Volante.
They really do. They advertise all their drivers, promote them quite well. Coming into every single race, you know exactly who they are, what they're all about, and it makes that connect with the team even stronger. I think it sets a good ideal for every single team, and many other teams have followed suit as well. You see lots of top teams doing stuff like that as well, so good to see this. But more about the move. That move was well calculated and smartly put. And are we going to see something similar from Marius Golombek, who literally has been on fire so far since the start of this race, clocking in some outrageous times that are faster than his teammate and the car directly ahead of him? That is Kevin Crosney's RaceFox Sim Racing car.
But again, the rearview mirror getting larger and larger. The Van de Waal Sim Racing car and Sim RC. If I was a betting man right now, I'd be saying that the 77 SimRC might be a little bit too far arrears of this battle, but you never know. 50 minutes left on the clock, and again, a driver swap as well might see them come back into the fore. From this point, I couldn't tell you who's going to win the race because it is wide open. Again, it's not like seeing the two SimRC cars driving around and contending just between each other in the final stage of the race. This one's wide open. You can see there on the timesheets just coming through the arena section. We had 4 cars within a second, and they still very much are. Vendaval are very much a part of this battle now.
They really are. They've got to find the right moment in this particular case, and look at how hard they're pushing, right? I genuinely am fearful that someone might eventually end up putting a few more wheels than they intend to on that gravel trap right there in the entry to the arena section. Because over the last few weeks, we've had quite a few competitive races broadcasted at Hockenheim that I've been a part of, and seriously, everyone has gone right there. Everyone has pushed their car to that limit. So many times where things have gone wrong, where they've got the tail end sliding, but nobody losing control that badly could go wrong. They just have to be more careful about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've said before in the previous races, that might be a little bit far there from Marius Gollenbeck. I think he got a slowdown penalty in race 1 as well for exceeding track limits down at turn 1, so must be careful of that. And like we said, it's a track which can bite quite a bit if you push it a little bit too far. Update on SimRC, 6th position. They are charging race winners in the previous one. They've got themselves past the German simracing.de car. They have their sights set on one thing, and that is closing down the 2.5 second gap to this battle, where we might see Team RaceFox making a move on Core Sim Racing, because if we don't, believe me, Marius Gollenbeck is going to be right there to try and make a Core Sim Racing 1-2. You'd have to say the drive of the hairpin is going to favour the RaceFox car, and certainly does so, and maybe even for their attempt. How many moves did we see around here? Kevin Crosney going to try and make it stick around the outside of the arena section. We saw it work a few times. Gollenbeck to the inside, second place looming for him. Is it going to be completed? Once again, it has to be the hard way, up and over the curbs there. Oh, this is tight stuff between them. Vendaval as well, waiting, time being lost, hand over fist, heading into the stadium section. Everyone holds the position they entered it in. It is as tight as you like. Gollenbeck is once again trying something, but oh my, what a bit of racing.
How mind-blowing is it that when you go to make a move on somebody, there's a good chance that you might end up losing 3 positions? That is what the Sports Car Open Sprint Challenge is turning out to be all about. The competition at the top. The first race really was an outlier in my opinion, to see SimRC dominating all the way through. This is when things have become really hot and spicy. Does anyone dare make the move? Does anyone have the guts in it to go around the outside, around the inside, and avoid, and maybe take the risk of being passed by somebody else behind them? At this stage, it opens up a ton of doors for SimRC, because they're at the back of this train. They are the ones that have a lot to gain and a lot less to lose. This is going to be incredibly fun to see how this matures.
Absolutely, and we've got plenty of time to see that one out. A reminder once again as well, see them try and battle their way through, that we have action once again tomorrow, 1 PM UTC, where we're going to see the big names take on this venue as well in the Sprint Masters. There's the dive to the inside, could be completed this time, pushing out Team RaceFox, giving room on the exit. Going to be picking up a 1x for that regard, as they're still going to be side by side running through the King. Marius Gollenbeck has got to stick it around the outside if the position's going to be made. Crosney trying to hang on. It's overly done from Marius Gollenbeck, but is it enough? Kept the foot in. I'm not so sure that move would be deemed as legal, as Crosney will try and switch back to the inside, and Vendaval also might follow. A little bit dodgy, a little bit dicey. Now they're going to go side by side, and SimRC as well, diving it to the inside. That is tight, and their teammate is closing in on this, so the position is gained from Marius Gollenbeck in fairly controversial circumstance. Crosney's under pressure from Vendaval. Vendaval managed to hang on from SimRC, but that is not going to last, as Felix Luding is going to try and complete that into the penultimate corner and through the final. Side by side, it's like a Skip Barber race.
Exactly. What do I even tell you about this battle? Firstly, I have to tell you, Kevin Crosney, that was some good driving. More of that in a second as we see Vendaval finally get the edge. over Sim RC. But Sim RC getting a run over all over again. See, this is the fun part. There's drama happening everywhere, 24/7 in a way it seems like. And Sim RC for the lunge at turn number 2. Of course they've got the drive, of course they've got the run, and of course they have the inside line. What this does is make sure the second Sim RC car is also here. This might be a Sim RC train, and yes, it surges past Vendaval.
Yeah, they're going to try. Jamie Moon going to almost, as near as makes no difference, bump draft, backs out of it into the braking zone at the hairpin to allow his teammate Felix Luding to try and make the move on Bursa, and does continue to make that move. But is Jamie Moon going to take advantage as well? The answer to that question is a solid no, but you'd have to argue that they are a part of this battle as well. It's a Core Sim Racing 1-2. It's to the tune of 1.3 seconds, but in the previous race we did see a 1.5 second gap appear between the two Sim RC cars that was closed down over the latter point of the first stint. Once again, reminding you all that they have a pit stop to make. It's the same rules as the previous race. They will be pitting roughly around the halfway point of the race. It's between 35 and 25 minutes of race completion, or towards the race end, depending on how you want to think about it. It's the same for both. But that played its part in the previous race, and I do get the vibe it's going to play its part in this one as well.
It could very well be eventually. We might see that gap close up. It's turning out to be very similar in nature to what happened in the first race, where we have a team going out there having a 1.5 second gap, and that gap is created by the crazy battling right behind. And you've got to give it to Kevin Crossley in this particular case right here. The way he was battling, he tried something incredibly smart. What he did was he allowed that Core Sim Racing car to go a little bit deeper, because he would then have the cutback right there at the exit of that Mercedes Arena section. That was superb driving, but what he could not anticipate was the fact that Dylan Burse was being pushed incredibly hard by Jamie Mooner and Felix Luding right there, and that really shook things up for him. He couldn't quite execute it to perfection, and he couldn't quite get the best drive. It's just amazing driving technically all around, Lewis. It's so awesome to see these small quirky elements being added in, and you can just watch it. But the fact that there's more drama behind changes things up, and that more drama means Vendaval sending one down the inside of Sim RC now. Yeah, and
Sim RC, Felix Luding had to back out of it a little bit there. That was what I said all about, because I was pretty sure there was going to be contact between the two, and we might have seen the 76 round and backwards. Alas, that was not the case. Now, got to ask you, a fairly important question. Your team Race Fox right now. You can see you've got two Sim RC cars. You can see what that gap is. Do you fight Marius Golombek?
Interesting. Golombek might fight back very, very hard. Golombek has had a great degree of pace. But then again, it's all about, can he really get much closer? And this particular case, you don't have to do much. For Pascal Sticks right now, he's got the clean air. Just drive as fast as you possibly can. But when Golombek comes up, it largely depends on how close is Krosny. If Krosny isn't close by, which isn't the case right now, you can take things a little bit easier, swap it around as teammates. I mean, if you really have to. But when they're closer by, when all the other cars are closer by, you can't afford to do that. You just got to focus on your own race. So the answer to that, I think, in a very complicated way, would be no. I don't think so.
No, me neither. I think for Krosny right now, no point in fighting. I think allow Marius Golombek to close up to Pascal Sticks, because regardless of whether the two Core Sim Racing drivers fight, you want to be back a part of the race battle. You don't want to be fighting for second. You don't want to be fighting for fifth. You don't want to be fighting for any of these positions. The only position you want to be fighting for is that for the race lead, and you use your tactical prowess to put you as close to that battle as possible. So for Krosny, there's no point in fighting. I even say for Jamie Moon, there's no point in fighting Bursa at the moment. You let that all unfold. You just allow your teammate, and I'd say the same thing for Bursa on the back of Luding, but once again, as the hairpin gets very, very close, just allow everything to unfold. Allow the time to close back up into that leading battle. As the two Fiercely Forward cars, by the way, Fiercely Forward and Fiercely Forward Tricolor, right behind, they are also closing in this battle. Unfortunately, it's not working out quite in the same way for Fiercely Forward IRS, but regardless, again, for the brand, looking pretty good for them to join this battle. Speaking of the brand, being dived down the inside, that is never going to work. 3 into 1, certainly not ideal, just being pinched from both sides. Had a Volante car and a Maniti one, left and then right. That was a bit of a shame for Rebecca Pauline. Nothing she could do.
Nothing at all, but talk about a daring send right there. We've been seeing these three cars really go up against each other for a long time, but that from Volante in a BMW, that's not really going right there. Outrageous, yes sir, it was. We'll have to take a quick replay to probably get an idea of what really happened because it flew past so quickly, but great racing all the way through. Here's that replay we were asking for. There's Rebecca Pauline sending one down the inside, and here's Volante doing a double send down the inside. Insane stuff, really.
Maniti could do nothing either because they would have no idea that was being made 3 wide. That was an absolute send down the inside from the 27 car. Like, that is bold from Caraballo, but we love to see that stuff. Absolutely, that was a proper send. I also was saying that for Ben Hackerson, that the race might not be going so well. Not far off the back of this battle, so may well get involved. There is that send. Again, 3 into 1 doesn't really work, but you have to respect that.
I mean, could you have even seen that BMW as Maniti? That BMW was barely visible, and it's like when the door isn't open for you, you just kick it through. That is what the Volante car did in that case there.
Sorry, Samuel, we've got the battle for 5th place. We've got SimRC going around the outside and now actually making that one stick. This one started at the hairpin and has continued to unfold into this. So Jamie Moon up into 5th position ahead of Bursa. So nice move completed. And now going to close in on Luding, who, by the way, for Krosny and Golombek, they are right there for the race lead. Vendaval once again, Bursa sending it into the stadium section, but no way through, and they're going to hold their positions for now. And obviously, you've got to worry about the German simracing.de car, and of course, Fiercely Forward, who are waiting.
Little Bursa's actually were very aggressive on this one. The Aussie genuinely wants that position in this case. It's like he can't afford to lose track position. Because of course he can't. There's other cars behind him. He can't fall back into the trap of fighting with the German sim racing car and Fiercely Forward, because they are eventually not going to let him get a podium position. By the way, Gianni is sending one down the inside of Underuti in this particular case, and this is going to be interesting. It's all about the drive that he get on the exit. Is it the Porsche who gets the better run? No, the McLaren. The 30 kilos of ballast on the Porsche really isn't helping them in this case.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it was a good attempt, attempt to send it, but it wasn't able to be completed. But I kind of get a vibe with this that it's a matter of when, not if. There is going to be a move here. It's just allowing it to happen. I don't mean to be harsh against the German simracing.de car, but their race pace does not seem to match up to their qualifying pace. It's once the laps sort of unfold, it just doesn't seem to work for them, whether it's the McLaren itself, whether it's just them, their team and their approach. I don't know. I'd suggest it's probably more so to do with the McLaren and the car itself, and they're wrestling with what they've got, but you know, I'm not going to put my neck on the line and say that for sure.
Yeah, no, you've got a good point. The McLaren seemingly in terms of race pace, I can't really look at one and say, right, that's been a very good McLaren in terms of race pace. German Sim Racing have struggled, Fiercely Forward have struggled with that element as well. Maybe it's a car thing, who knows? But as you rightly mentioned, it's too hard to point a finger on that and say that is it. But if that is it, Race Control, of course, will be very prompt with that. Of course, manual BOP in this championship, so we can adjust it from circuit to circuit, track to track, and it might change eventually. You get a feeling that the BMWs and the McLarens might be slightly bumped up, but it's interesting to see that up ahead, it really has become much of a Porsche Cup, as according to the chat.
Yeah, Porsche with Porsche Cup is always the thing that everyone wants to say in this kind of scenario, and I'm not going to necessarily disagree. We've got a lot of Porsches on the grid, and the Porsches are seeming the faster car at present, but like you say, that is not necessarily going to be the form book for the season, as Benjamin Hackerson and Rebecca Pauline both gain a position. Zviers was passed by Pauline, and Zestra was passed by Hackerson, so gaining the places as they do in the background. That'll be down into turn 2, so pretty bold send, and that's what may have to happen in this battle between Yanni and Anderuti. Bit of a flash of light, so switching of the guard, allowing Mariette through, potentially. Continuing to flash, so no, miscommunication in the team there maybe, or just a slow drive off the hairpin. not sure exactly what happened. Surely the drive shouldn't have been that bad. Although it did switch position. It's just my time machine was updated a little bit slow. My apologies, they did switch.
Yeah, of course it did. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a bit of that going on.
No, it's all right. This is always the tip. Blame technology, never yourself.
Stuff happens.
Yeah, right. I mean, to be fair, you give it the plaudits of if you've attempted a few times and it doesn't work, switch and try it the other way. Naturally, that doesn't always happen because it's always like, oh, you've got to make sure the position's returned to me. A pit window is open. Pit window is being used, by the way. Marius Gollenbeck and Krosny both enter the pit lane at the first stage. There they go as they drop down the order. Wow, I just caught that out of the corner of my eye. Very early as you can be.
Exactly, right on the money with 35 minutes. It's like they really want their second driver to be right in there. And if I remember correctly, that is also the same two teams that went for the longest stint in that first particular race. So clearly there is an inclination towards their second drivers in a case like this one, but they want them to do most of that run. So fun to see these strategies coming into perspective. Fun to see how some teams are more lopsided than the others.
Absolutely. Not switching on the halfway point of the race, opting to try and get fresh air, fresh driver, fresh tyres onto the car. SimRC, who we currently have on screen, so they are running now in second and third after Jamie Moon got by Bursa. So that position switch, all well and good. Again, if I'm Vendaval Sim Racing, I'm not going to fight this. Certainly not yet. Wait until post pit stop sequence. No point in losing time now to those that have been in the pit lane.
Yeah, exactly. Just wait and watch. And in this particular case, the undercut might not really be the best approach, as we mentioned, because GT4s, it takes time to warm up those tires. You really want more time. You have to buy yourself more time. And in the undercut, really what you're banking on is coming up with a fresher rubber and going in for some really fast laps, and that might not just happen eventually, you know. So might as well wait it out. And many teams did that. In fact, I think SimRC as well in the first particular race, boxing right at minute 25, nothing less, nothing more, just pitting right on the very edge because they know that the undercut may not work. And now Vendaval following that approach, it's like they're just doing something for doing something different.
Well, we said it before in the qualifying session that necessarily the first lap of the tyre is not that great. It's not terrible, it's fine, it's just not that great.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you lose a couple of tenths, half a second, whatever, trying to get them up to pace, that's where you're going to lose time. That's where the undercut doesn't work. Whilst the tyres may be a little bit faster after a couple of laps, you're ideally hoping that they stay out until the end of the sequence and you're coming in at the first point of it and trying to get it's almost like the long-winded undercut that doesn't really work. SimRC, they aren't going to fight. Look at how close they are now. The intensity between them, they were close in race one when they were battling it for the race lead. This is taking it to another level.
But they're mature, that's the main thing. There's a reason why SimRC have won so many titles in 24H Esports. In TCR cars, they've won so many races in GT3s as well. It's because they know how to pick their battles, they know who to fight and when to fight. And in this case, you will just not see a sin between them. You will just not see them go side by side. You will just not see them duel that hard because they know at this stage there's a lot more to gain by working together. And of course, to add another reason of working together, they're the same team, just with two different entries. So that helps.
Absolutely. Like I said, there's something I don't really. Again, I'm not going to name names. There are some teams that really don't work well together, and some drivers like that because it's free, it's open, race as hard as you want. Other teams, some of the other places that I worked with in sim racing, some outfit going up against another outfit, and they're two lead drivers. If it doesn't work out, you need a team behind you as race leader, core sim racing, enter the pit lane. If for whatever reason the qualifying doesn't work out, you need your team to almost help you battle your way back into contention. And that we see from some teams, we don't see it from others. We don't see that sort of assistance like in appropriate terminology here, considering it is Le Tour de France right now. If you drop off the back of the peloton, having your team drop off to come and assist, which you do see fairly frequently if you're the team leader. Some teams help, some teams don't. Some teams just go, do you know what, we're going to leave you. It can be pretty rough.
The way you said it made it seem even more rough.
Tragic.
Yeah, exactly. Good delivery, honestly. That was super. But that's right. That's just a different mentality. And the point you mentioned about drivers being more individualistic, many teams want that open environment. Many teams, and it just doesn't go about race strategy as well as we see the VRS car come out. It also goes on into aspects such as practice. Many teams practice all in dedicated times with everyone together in the same session. They have some sort of regime, but others are like, yeah, you practice whenever you want to. It just depends on styles, depends on approaches. Some liking the structure and that back net that he spoke about, and the others just wanting to be more free. And there's no right or wrong in this case. In many cases, both techniques work eventually. It's more on how can you make it work, what suits you, and in that sense, you end up joining a team that works in your favor. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want to work into a team that works for you. So the first of the SimRC cars, being the 77, enters the pit lane, so running differing strategy to their teammate, pitting just past the halfway point of the race as they dart their way into pit lane, leaving not too many out on the race circuit. It's P7, the number 35 Core Sim Racing car, that is the effective leader right now. So we'll see where they come out in comparison. As switching of positions down at the back of the grid, RSR getting by Maniti and continuing to battle it out for 16th spot as we see the fiercely forward IRS car, and there is the Team RaceSpot car right on the back once again, so still remaining there or thereabouts. A bit of a gap forming between the Core Sim Racing cars. Just want to remind you all once again, there is a giveaway at the moment. VRS and Lego putting together a decent package for you. Lego, a Lego Technic Porsche 911 RSR, which is given out per race weekend, and of course the VRS DFP wheelbase at the end of the season. So go and get yourselves involved in those giveaways. Arjuna Kakabati has been putting the link in the chat on a fairly frequent basis, so click on that and go and get yourselves involved. A bit of time loss there from SimRC. I'm pretty sure they were a little bit closer prior to the pit stops. They've not been able to close up to that lead battle anyway.
Yeah, they've fallen back to RaceFox just by a little bit, but the order at the top has still more or less remained the same. Core Sim Racing having a 1-2, RaceFox third, SimRC fourth. I just wonder which SimRC car is going to come out on top. Is it going to be the 76 or the 77? Remember, before going into the box, it was the 76 that was up ahead of that 77 machine. I know there's too many numbers that I'm quoting right here, but it is what it is. I want to see if Vendeval are able to do something as well. There comes the 76 machine right now. As expected, what's not expected is that the German sim racing cars, Lewis, have fallen back to face the forward right now. By a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, I say not expected. Like I say, the race pace and stuff, but it's just not really there for them. And so you say unexpected, but I'm almost like, it's almost like they're racing with their eyes sat very firmly on the rear view mirror. I think everyone actually is coming into the pit lane now, so we're all completing our stops. They did have another lap in the pit window, but electing not to use it, and coming in now, not trying to push it to that very limit. Core Sim Racing will cycle out to the race lead. I am absolutely sure of that. But is it going to remain that? Is there, the benefit in the long run of running out the pit sequence, getting some tyres that are a little bit fresher on for those final moments as fiercely forward depart pit lane, as does the other Sim RC car? I think it might well be the 76 ahead of the 77, or there might just be a switch between. They're going to be close. I think they're going to initiate the switch between them as they're still side by side. Now, this is the team that's worked out. 76 is going to hold position there.
Interesting stuff, so they're not pushing it too hard. Again, realizing what the core aim is in this case. They can't waste time fighting against each other. And like this, Vendeval Sim Racing right there are wasting time fighting with somebody. That's the VRS Tricolor car that hasn't made their stop. And Vendeval should be in this battle. Vendeval should be involved in that top 4 fight, but they're not, because at this particular stage, they're just stuck behind. Jason Staney is stuck behind Nicolas Pina in that car right there.
I'm pretty sure the Tricolor car has been into the pit lane. I'm just thinking that Vendeval has lost an awful lot of time.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, they have. That got me by surprise.
Yeah, they've done very well, but either way, Fiercely Forward going on the attack, but so is Vendaval now diving it to the inside, opening the door potentially for the Fiercely Forward teammate that we are now riding on board with. Harris going to try and make the move going into that stadium section. Where is the dive to the inside? This is going to have to be brave. This doesn't happen that often. There it is, an absolute send. That is fantastic. Saw Bursa being passed and trying to hold position to the SimRC car in the early stages of the race. Now teammate being passed themselves, as Wagner's also going to try and get involved in the mix. That was a stunning move, by the way.
Really was right there. Both the Fiercely Forward cars gaining in confidence as the race goes on, but I'm really confused. I'm really wondering, where did Vendaval simracing ended up losing that much time? Because when they came into the pit lane, very, very competitive, very close by to SimRC. And I mentioned early on, they don't want to fall back into this trap of fighting with the Fiercely Forward cars and the German sim racing machine, but here they are doing just that.
Yeah, clearly having some issues with the pit lane sequence. Maybe it's just not getting up to temperature. Maybe it's just driving errors. Oh, here we go. Battle for the race lead. Core Sim Racing not playing it with the same cards that SimRC were. Oscar Mangan going to try and take the lead down into the hairpin. Looking out maybe a little bit on the rears, but either way, it is still a Core Sim Racing 1-2, but now it's the 34 heading the 35. Gabler a little bit too far off, but we do know, don't we, that if Gabler gets there, that is a driver that knows how to make a good move.
He really does, and he fought so hard with the Core Sim Racing drivers in that first particular race. Got me got me on the edge of my seat pretty much. That is what was happening, and even his defense was pretty resolute. Speaking of having resolute defenses, many might need to do so with the Volante car, because that BMW really, Lewis, is that not where it's supposed to be? It should be way down the order, but the driving, I mean, they're really squeezing a lot of that BMW. They're crushing that orange and making some really good juice out of it. That was a lemon, wasn't it? Lemon and lemonade.
They're doing whatever they can. They are wrestling this and showing that whilst, yes, it's not great, you can still do all right things with it if you can push it to the limit and maybe even a little bit further. Oh, good catch. Absolutely superb catch there from Diaz. That could have ended in tears. You say these cars, you know, they've got traction, they've got this, they've got that. They're supposed to be like a more open car and easy to drive. They're not easy to drive. They are difficult. You do have to wrestle them, and that was wrestled for the Volante car. But beautiful stuff. Now they have to keep their eyes on their rear view mirror as, oh, look at that. Absolutely superb. Look at the slip angle on that. Beautiful stuff. Picked up by the curb. But really was stunning stuff. But they do have to keep their eye on the mirror because Radicals Online are right there.
And Radicals Online, had it not been for that takeout that they had early on, could they have been higher? Could they have been fighting in that battle for the top 6 positions maybe? Because their pace has been rather consistently decent all the way through. So that could be an interesting factor to count in. But look at this right now. Vendaval, where are they losing the time? German Sim Racing, by the way, have the outside line for the next corner after this one. This is going to be fun. Vendaval are pushed out wide. Who gets it? By her carbon fiber.
Was that contact between the two teammates ahead?
There was, yeah, and that was rather loud in the background.
Yeah. It's like someone's trying to throw their cutlery against the kitchen wall. That was a pretty loud hit. Let's take a look and see if it was a 2T. I'm absolutely sure it must have been. Just being unloaded. Oh, that is a hit. That is a hit. I don't think it'll affect them too badly, but it could affect the straight line speed of the car that's chasing. So for Harris, that's not what you want between the two teammates. Not good for the brand either.
I mean, that's not a gentle poop, or that's the unit would call it, right? That certainly isn't. That right there is not a love tap. That is a proper shunt right there that thankfully did not go the wrong way around for both the Fiercely Forward cars. So maybe they might just be getting an internal reminder that, okay, that is what can happen if we push it just by a little bit too much. Let's calm it down maybe. And now, calming down will not happen right here because this seems to be an all-star fight.
Absolutely. We've got Gabler defending from Jürgen Frank and Van Putten. So those two were 1 and 2 in the previous race. Getting it as close as you like did Jürgen Frank, and going to try and make the move as they have eyes for one thing, and that is the victory. We know that SimRC can win in this championship as they've already done it in the previous race. Now we could see 2 versus 2 and potentially with a 1 in there as well, dependent on Gabler's position for Team RaceFox. I wouldn't be necessarily worried about that. I'd be more intent in sitting in the slipstream and trying to close up to the top 2 because there's still 20 minutes left somewhere. There's still plenty of time in this race to catch that and go after the victory surge.
Really is, and for Gambler right now as well, it's not the worst thing in the world at this stage. He has to worry about one less car, and if this sort of pack can close up to the core sim racing cars, really, there is some substance. I think I would back someone like Gabler in a battle when there's 6 cars close to each other fighting for the win. I think I would go for him. I think he's quite a good pick in that case because he showed that sort of aggression and intent. And more importantly, the ability to keep it clean in those multi-car battles in race number 1. So at this stage, what they're really banking on is that the SimRC cars can tag along and take the RaceFox car as well, close it up to the core sim racing machine.
Absolutely. Again, you're playing it the long game. I've said this before that somebody have said that these are only tactics that you use in endurance racing, and I said that's absolute rubbish. You don't just use that kind of that tactical knowledge in endurance racing. You can use it in your 60-minute races, your Grand Prix distant races, your touring car races even. If you play your cards right in a touring car, it could be a 15-minute touring car race, but knowing when and how to fight is absolutely critical, and that is what separates your good racing drivers from your great ones. A good racing driver will be able to make a move, will be able to work their way up the order. A great one will do it cleanly and will be very, very consistent with where they position themselves and how they work up the order, and doing it in this methodical way that they do it with almost without losing time. This car has done that, by the way, has started 11th, now running in 5th spot, but the car behind, the fiercely forward Tricolor car, started in 17th and is up to 6th. That is a stunning effort.
Really is from SimRC. Bram Van Putten, well, honestly, his qualifying was, let's be honest, was not very good in comparison to what SimRC did in the first part of the race. But Bram Van Putten in those long race stints just seems to come alive, and that's what he's done so far. Maybe that's chink in their armor, perhaps, Lewis. The fact that SimRC with Bram Van Putten maybe just not having the best of qualifyings. When they are fighting for a championship like that, they can't really let that happen, right? And it feels harsh to say that, they have to work on this one, they have to work on that one. Bram has been doing a superb job up here in the race space. But really, considering where SimRC are in the championship and considering who they are fighting, they need reinforcements from every single aspect on this race weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, SimRC are looking good right now. But like you say, it's about ironing out the kinks. And for some of these teams, particularly with SimRC, we use them as the best example here because, like you say, race 1 qualified well, 2nd and 4th. Race went brilliantly, 1st and 2nd. This time, though, 6th and 11th, not quite so great. But they've responded with that. They've come back up. They're running on the podium. They're running in 5th spot with a 2nd car. It's a bit of a wake-up call more than anything else. It's not high drama because they've had an issue and they've bounced back from it. They've worked their way back into a good spot, and so realistically, if there's a race that you're going to struggle in, this is probably not a bad way of doing it, because if this is your struggle round, then I mean, fair enough. Obviously, a 6-round season, there's not too much time to make mistakes, but they're bouncing back very, very well. By the way, fiercely forward have switched, and Tricolor is now down to 7th.
Exactly, that has happened. And meanwhile, Radicals Online are sending one to the outside line of the Volante team. This is going to be fun right here. This corner has been a Volante special, and that BMW won't lose here. That BMW has got the edge in this particular case, but the drive of the McLaren seems to be superior. Door to door they go, and this is GT4 racing at its best. Diversity? Yeah. Side-by-side racing? Of course.
Yeah, decent move. I mean, a good attempt to try and hold it back, and that is going to continue. I say good attempt to try and hold that one back. I think it might even be completed as SCO's going to try and throw it in, but that Volante car is still there. Oh, just about enough room given. Coming up towards the penultimate corner of the lap, and it should actually, of all things, go back the way of the BMW. Brilliant stuff, like you're saying, GT4 racing at its finest. Two cars that may not have had the greatest race so far are pushing it to the very limit. This is something that we've not seen work out so much. Maniti Racing will have an answer in that playbook of how the dive into turn one doesn't work. It was almost going to be an attempt from Squirek, but Diaz holds firm. Oh, by the way, SimRC diving it down for second place. That is an absolute send. Absolutely came to a stop on the apex as well. Did Bram van Putten down at the hairpin, but does manage to get by the Team RaceFox car. So for Gabler, that is the position drop. But is it going to be continued in that fashion? I do believe so. Has to go around the outside of the arena section, but SimRC holds firm. So it's core, SimRC.
Yeah, something rather therapeutic about seeing somewhat of a repetition in the timing screen. Makes it more easy on your eye, but I don't think that's going to remain the way it is for the end of the race, because right now, Lucas Gabler, it's a big wake-up call for him. On SimRC car going past, fine, maybe he can tag along and get closer to the core sim racing cars. This position, he will not let go, because this position is literally the difference between, well, quite literally the top 5 and the bottom 5. And the top 5 and the rest of the top 10, basically. And they don't want to be there right now. They want to tag along. They want to be fighting for the podium positions. They've got to fight hard for this one. They've got to be well within that top 5. This is going to be a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of big ones, speaking of SimRC, and speaking of the podium battle, they are right there now on the rear end of the core sim racing car. It was the 77, again, as a bit of a reminder, that was victorious in the previous race. Will it be the 76 this time? They've got 2 seconds to make up and 2 cars to pass in the next 13 minutes and 40 seconds. That is a hard task, especially when that team that you have to pass is core sim racing. They do not budge.
And Maxim Ramstein, look at how much he's transformed from first race to the second one. I said early on, he's just getting used to the brakes of that 718 Cayman, because normally he's a World Championship level 911 GT3 Cup car driver. And Ramstein right now, he's not made a single error in the race so far for core sim racing. Driving extremely cleanly in P number 2, maintaining the gap as he possibly should. We saw his struggles in race number 1, hit another car when he was coming back on the rejoin, locking up his brakes, making mistakes. Not so much right now. Speaking of fun battles, here we go again.
GermanSimRacing.de, and this is the Tricolor car that's attempting to be passed by Fiercely Forward. I would appreciate, by the way, if they'd make a little bit more difference between the two Fiercely Forward cars. It's quite hard to tell them apart between the Tricolor and the Standard. Of course, it's quite easy to pick the IRS car apart, but between those two Porsches, it's pretty tricky. I was expecting more of a Tricolor, to be honest, to be perfectly honest, but alas, not the case. Battling it out with the German Sim Racing car, so, you know, fair enough. Vendaval, though, they've got to be sat there thinking, we deserve more than this, we deserve better than this, we can do better than this. 12 minutes, they can still gain a few positions.
They can. I'm actually treading on some very tricky waters. Do I want to call Vendaval underperformance in this particular race? Maybe. I think we saw a lot of potential from them in the first race. Are we calling Fiercely Forward overperformance in that case? I think maybe not, because we really saw the pace from the IRS car, and as a unit as well. Maybe just the first race was not functioning on their side. Takes time to grow in, and that's the interesting part about the championship, that even though we're pretty much 1.9 rounds in so far, we genuinely don't know what the proper competitive order looks like, and actually we may not know, because things might be tinkering around, certain drivers gaining in confidence, certain tracks favoring certain teams. That's the fun part, where there's no set order like in Formula 1, and that honestly is the reason why we tune in. Imagine if you knew where everyone is going to finish right before you started watching. How the hell is that?
Exactly. I get the vibe, at least from what we're seeing here. And again, this is the only sort of thing that you can pull from this round at Hockenheim, is that it's feeling like a core sim racing versus sim RC that anyone else can get involved in, right? But it does seem that those are the two main protagonists towards the front. But like you say, the guarantee that will continue throughout the season is absolutely impossible. It is not a guarantee. It can't happen. We can't guarantee it. Yeah. And that means that we're wide open for 6 lovely rounds of racing, 5 to follow this. And again, we are back in the next week as we race around Europe, and plenty more racing to come, absolutely. And don't forget that we are returning tomorrow for the Sprint Masters, and I'm sure that'll be thrilling fights. 1 p.m. UTC, or 1:30 I think it is UTC. Same place, so going to be tight. Jürgen Frank trying to do better, trying to get second place and potentially even a victory as well. Still plenty of time, 10 minutes left on the clock.
Love to see the fact that Jürgen Franke has caught up. We had a word with him between the 2 races. He seemed determined. He said, we'll see. Well, the time to see is done. He's going right there, and he's doing it for himself. The German driver sends it at the hairpin.
Yeah, that is a proper send as well. Is it going to be completed on Ramstein, though? Does indeed complete it. We caught with Jürgen Frank after race 1. Saying that, potentially the start of the race was a little bit frantic, a little bit crazy. I think this one is in that vein as well. But where he said that the second driver, that his teammate, Felix Luding, had, a fairly easy end to the race. In the second stint in the previous one. It does seem like they've both had to do the heavy lifting this one, and it is working out for them. There is not long to go though. Like I say, time's ticking away. If you were to divide it by laps, it's 5 laps to go. 5 laps to catch a 2.2 second gap whilst you've got pressure from behind of that car's teammate. That is a tall order.
And don't forget, Maxim Ramstein, World Championship level driver for core sim racing in the GT3 Cup car. This may not be any GT3 Cup car, but the tag still remains. He still is a World Championship level driver. And for Jürgen Frank, who's more into TCRs, it's a bit of a middle ground, this one, where both these drivers have come up from their comfort zone, are driving something new, pushing hard, and just look at how well they sort of complement each other in this case, because both of them are dueling so hard with each other. It sort of gives some very good breathing room to Oscar Mangan. But this battle, I don't care if they don't fight for the win in this one. It does not matter. What matters is that they can genuinely put up such an amazing show in this last 8 minutes. We won't even be bothered about who wins at the end.
Exactly. We're here for the show. We're here for the drama, aren't we? So we're here for racing action, which I do believe we are going to get. I think the 2.3 seconds might be too tall of an order to close down anyway, even for a driver the talent of Jürgen Frank, because Oscar Mangan is plenty fast enough himself, and that is a fairly large gap to close down in an 8-minute period. And at the moment, Ramstein not able to do anything about Jürgen Frank. Again, posted in chat from Arjuna Kakapati, so now is a good time to talk about it. Remember that VRS and LEGO are doing a giveaway this season. A LEGO Technic Porsche 911 RSR every race weekend, and of course the VRS DFP wheelbase at the end of the season. The link is there in chat, so get on it, get yourself involved, yourself in it. Why not? What have you got to lose? And certainly no time, as long as it's open in a different tab, right? You don't want to turn off this broadcast, certainly not now with this battle, certainly not with this battle as well, a little bit further down the order.
Yeah, and there's a tap from the Alcatech team on the Radicals car. That's a bit of a naughty way to get past, and they will get past indeed. The first competitive race for the Alcatech NHR team in this category, and they have made their way past. And the Radicals, well, they might not be happy about that. But what that does is just leave the BMW with more room. I am astounded by how much juice the Volante team have been able to extract from that BMW. I literally expected nothing from that car. But seriously, both their drivers, they've got something in the bag right here with this one.
Like I say, Volante is from, I've raced against the Volante squads, or whatever, when it was back, different teams, different names, whatever. Allied Racing Esports by TCS off, and then TCS off as well, and obviously it's a bit of an amalgamation between different brands as well. Whatever. They are realistically, I mean, they've battled for championships and whatever, but they're more so in sim racing terms more of an underdog team. But the thing with a team like that is it's almost like the amount they can extract from something seems impossible. Like, you think, nah, there's no way they can pull off a drive like this in that BMW. But then somehow, like, almost flying under the radar, doing their own thing, they're just able to extract it. And if they could extract it on a weekly basis, this is a team that genuinely would contend with the upper echelons of sim racing on a very, very consistent basis. There goes the switch of position, so Skwarek does get by Crisp once again, which almost seemed like a fair move after the incident into this corner, which wasn't a fair move. I do agree with you on that one. But they also have to keep their eyes on the mirrors, which for Maniti Racing, qualifying was much better this time. The race, though, once again, not great. That dive down into turn 1 that sent the 79 off spinning was not great. The 78 has not had a good day, and the 80, well, I mean, it's qualified in last in both races and is currently running around in last as well. Bit of a shame for Maniti.
Yeah, I'd say give it time. They're more into endurance racing, more into GT3s, GTEs, and that sort of stuff, as many other teams are as well. But maybe just coming in with the intention of trying to learn. Maybe we could see more full-fledged Maniti entries into more GT4 championships from here on. Who knows?
Who knows indeed. By the way, the fight is pretty tight between the two fiercely forward cars that are running around in 6th spot. They've switched positions, I think, or they were very close to doing so anyway. They might have switched back round. But either way, it is the fiercely forward 53 from the fiercely forward tricolor that we have been informed that they are trying to work on something. They're trying to do something about it, which is, you know, I'll take that. That's a positive. That's a win. To me, do really like. I mean, you brought it up earlier in the broadcast. Do really like the fiercely forward livery. I mean, black and yellow is a good choice of colour anyway, because it contrasts really nicely. But also, it's something which is quite hard to pull off and actually make look good. But an asymmetrical design really looks nice.
Genuinely does, and I can't wait to see how they pull it off. Fiercely forward, by the way, they've designed some tremendous liveries. There's this one, there's the red and black one that they designed. There is also, I think, a very interesting black and yellow one. This is yellow and black. That one's the complete opposite of that one that they had on one of the MX-5 cars for the Ivra Club Cup on RaceSpotTV. I'm too excited to see how that goes eventually. Talk about liveries getting you excited, man. They really are some of the fun things that you can do on sim racing, that you don't have to pay so much money to get it done in real life. Just opens up a door of so much creativity.
Absolutely, you get to express yourself on the car, and you know, find your own way through, and it's always a good thing to learn. I mean, I've passed my livery design phase. I had a little bit where I was like, new car's out, I'll make a new livery, and it's like, oh, this is taking days now. And then I was like, no, this is someone else's job. There are people that do it much better than me, and it's one of those things that builds up in sim racing over and over again. And say, like, the limits that they're extracting from liveries these days, especially with the material systems where you can, you know, like make one part of the car matte and shiny, and it levels that car down as being much more tangible and much more believable. As being something which could be placed into the real world. The fiercely forward car's very, very close, as is the Alcantech car with Maniti Racing, still sat on the back, a bit of a train right on the rear end of the Aztec Sim Sport car. So yeah, no surprise for Volante. You know, like I say, they're keeping their eye on their rearview mirror. They've done their work early, as they're being dived a little bit, but it's going to be held from the BMW. They are in for a tricky final couple of laps, but if they've held on for 58 minutes, they can hold on for 2.
Yeah, exactly, they really can, but it's going to be the toughest 2 minutes for them in this particular case. The BMW has been superb at the Mercedes arena, so they're not going to concede a position right there, but we could see the McLaren's better run up and the better ability to lay down power perhaps come into perspective, but no, it is still not. Imagine a 4-way fight in the lower midfield is getting us so excited. This is turning out to be so much fun. And the Maniti car could be in with a shot as well, because that Porsche so far has been the dominant one in the entire grid all the way through.
And that is a car that has qualified quite well. It did qualify up in 7th spot dropped down to 15th, so really hasn't matched too well. They will be coming round now, and it is the white flag in the air. Not by much, by the way. It was by, I think, around about a second, so we're going a lap shorter in this race than in the previous one. It is tight stuff and looking very, very good. There he is. Go on, shake it away. Core Sim Racing, though, leading by 2 seconds. That gap's coming down quite a bit.
It really is. SimRC are pushing the envelope right now. Jürgen Franke has been on fire. He's had lap times that have been quite faster, but SimRC, over the course of the consistent stint, have been able to maintain it quite well. So it's not been cut down dramatically so far, but how interesting, right? The time between Core Sim Racing SimRC, Core Sim Racing SimRC. It's planted a seed for what could be an amazing battle all the way through, with RaceFox just pushing the envelope as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, race 1 was all about us. Look at this battle. We'll see that one unfold as they're still trying to hang on is the Volante car, and it's going to be hard as Radicals are going to try and go around the outside. I focus more on the left-hand side as it is so very tight. Is there going to be a dive? Oh, it's going to be tough. There might be contact out of the final corner, though. Core Sim Racing is going to take the second victory of the night. It's Pascal Stix and Oscar Mangan in this one. Race 1 was all about SimRC and Bram van Putten and Jamie Moon, but this time it goes the way of Core Sim Racing, but the action's not done yet. Maniti through the middle of it, gaining a position on the Alcantech car, and may well try and complete that one and get the set and get past the Radicals Online car. It's going to take Ascender to the penultimate corner. Gotta say, it's a bit of a win for Volante Racing Blue as they're going to depart the final corner in 12th spot, holding at bay this all the way through the race. That really is fantastic, but like you say, the seed is planted. Are we going to be talking about Core Sim Racing versus SimRC across the VRS Sports Car Open Sprint Challenge? I get the feeling the answer to that question is yes.
That was mighty fun. That was absolutely amazing. And not just at the top, even the battles all the way back down there. Maniti getting a steal on the Alcantech NHR team right down at the very end of the field right there. But the focus has to be on Oscar Mangan and the Core Sim Racing team right now. The way they've orchestrated this win really has to be a big one. But one wonders, what could SimRC have done had qualifying been better? Again, ifs, buts, maybes, whatever it may be, it's only hindsight that we can tell and talk about right now. But what is true is that we have an amazing battle on our hands.
We certainly do. And remember, this season is certainly not done yet. Opening round here at Hockenheim. We have 5 more rounds to follow. 5 more rounds of thrilling action. It'll be 2 races across the season in each of those. So 10 more races. Going to be 60 minutes in each one. Copy and paste this. I don't think so. I think we're going to see something brand new the next time we go racing. Oscar Mangan then, with Pascal Stix, takes victory here at Hockenheim in the second race. Jürgen Frank and Felix Luding good enough for their second consecutive second place for SimRC. And Maxime Ramstein in the Core Sim Racing teamed up with Marius Gollenbeck. Dropped down a little bit in the early stages, had to work their way back up. Good enough for 3rd spot. SimRC's the 77 car that was victorious in the previous race, with Jamie Moon and Bram van Putten in 4th place, and the rest of the order being the Team RaceFox Sim Racing car. The 2 Fiercely Forward cars of the Fiercely Forward and then Fiercely Forward Tricolor, 53 and 69 respectively, doing much, much better in this one and working their way up to 6th and 7th spot. Really fantastic stuff. GermanSimRacing.de hanging on inside the top 10 for an 8th place finish. Wagner behind the wheel of that one. The other GermanSimRacing.de car on the other side of the Vendaval Sim Racing car that had not so great second part of the race. 9th and 10th for Vendaval and GermanSimRacing.de by ACV. The final orders, Fiercely Forward by IRS, started out the night in the best possible way with pole position in the opening race of the season, but after a drive-through penalty didn't work out for them, and this race things just did not come together. Asetek Sim Sports Volante Racing Blue Big shout out to them. Fantastic driving that BMW with Radical's online track racer behind. Another sad race for them, being spun around for the second consecutive race down at the hairpin. Maniti Racing qualified well. Race did not go that way. 14th, their highest car, with the Alcantech NHR car. RSR down in 16th position, and the two Maniti Racing cars rounding out the grid. Somil, it has been fantastic. We've got a lot of interviews to get through. Let's begin our way with the race winner, Oscar Mangan and Pascal Stix. We'll grab them in. Fantastic race. We're going to go with Pascal Stix first, I do believe, because the start of the race was so crucial, taking victory. How do you get to that point? How difficult was it in the early stages?
Yeah, I think the key was just good qualifying. Oscar managed to put it into P2, and then I had to pass one car. And yeah, after that it was an easy race, I think.
Qualifying seems like it's very important in this. It's quite hard to pass in these cars. How did you find it yourself on track in the early stages, Pascal?
Yeah, it's quite difficult because there's so many cars on track. Everyone tries to get into the draft, and it's all a big traffic jam, and you have to be really in the right position. And you would think 20 minutes is plenty of time to get a good time, but I did manage it in the first race. But yeah, second race was good at least.
And to Oscar, obviously you had to do the qualifying in that second one. We'll just keep on qualifying for a second, because we were seeing a lot of teams trying to find their way into slipstream and try and basically they were tripping up over each other, trying to get the draft and try and gain position on that. Was that worth it, or was it better off just to do a lap by yourself?
No, it was definitely worth it. I think in the first run I didn't really get a lap in with the slipstream. I caught the car too early in the lap, but yeah, I think it was probably worth about maybe 2 to 3 tenths at least. It kind of depended, like if you got a really good run and kept your distance, you maybe got 4 or 5 tenths, but it really had to be perfect. So it was all about kind of just finding a space, getting out there and timing it right and stuff like that. So there was a big melee a couple of times, just trying everyone kind of swapping and stuff like that. So yeah, I wasn't really focused on getting pole. I knew if we got within the top 5, we had a chance at least a podium. So I was pretty happy with P2 just to stick a time up there and just kind of head down for the race then.
Well, a race win and a second podium for you, Oscar. So very, very good run here at Hockenheim. When SimRC got through into second spot, was there a bit of concern they might be able to catch? Are they really looking like your closest rivals in this?
I think so. They've definitely in the Cayman. If it's between two Caymans, it definitely seems like kind of it's us versus them, and maybe hopefully another team or two will come into the fray. I think Van de Waal will get up to speed soon, and we'll see how the McLarens and BMWs kind of progress as the BOP is kind of adjusted and stuff. But yeah, I think when they got past Maxime, I was sort of, you know, I knew if I just don't make mistakes, they kind of wouldn't really have enough time. I knew that if I could keep them out of kind of like that 1.1 or 1.2 second window, I'd be safe enough. And then there's the whole job of kind of getting by, so I'd have to obviously turn on defense mode and stuff like that. So but I think they showed good pace. We kind of pitted a bit early just to kind of stay with everyone else. We didn't want to be too far back and have to kind of do all the overtaking at the end. So I think that's kind of what worked out for us. They tried it, and it definitely worked out for them. I think they made 2 positions from where they pitted, but yeah, I think it's going to be a good season with them.
Right, well, thank you very much. Congratulations on your win and to the podium as well.
Thanks.
No worries. Let's grab in teammates and third place finishers in the race. Marius Golombek and Maxime Ramstein, who managed to do a fantastic job to grab themselves into third spot into the race. We'll start with Maxime Ramstein, who had to do the qualifying in that race. 4th place, decent effort, but you know, it seemed like pretty tough stuff out there, battling it out with SimRC.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, no, the qualifying was really nice. The whole field was super close, like way closer than I expected. So yeah, that was good. I was really happy with 4th, and yeah, the fight with SimRC. Oh boy, this is gonna be that kind of season, I'm afraid. In a good way.
Certainly seems so. I'll pass on a quick question to Marius Golombek as well. maybe the early part of the race, it seemed like the launch didn't get off too well. You had to get right involved in the fight in the early stages, worked your way up into that third spot battle. Really seemed like a tough fight in that cluster in the early part of the race.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, congratulations to the 34 car. I mean, that's a massive job by Oscar and Pascal. I think it was important to really be at 100% early on, because you can never afford to drop back and then suddenly a gap develops ahead of you and you can't follow and you'll kind of be stuck with it. So I think we had a good start, honestly. Kind of been stuck on the outside a couple of times, but then made it back around the outside in the hairpin and kind of went from there, honestly.
Wow, I've got to say, congratulations to you and the team. Really is fantastic effort. We hope to see this fight all season long. Back to you, Somel. The racing, great. We're ticking off the first round of the season. This has got me filled with hope that the future that we've got ahead of us is going to be a brilliant race.
Seriously. And what Maxime said right there was spot on. It's going to be that kind of season, and I am so glad for that. It puts the drivers under some immense pressure, but then again, competition gets the best out of you, and isn't that what we're here for?
Absolutely. Got some shots as well as to what happened across the race. Fantastic racing action. Obviously, got to remind ourselves that Team RaceFox started the race from pole position. Said about that start not going too well for Marius Gollenbeck, right in the thick end of things and having to really get involved with the action. Vendeval, who qualified well, their race wouldn't particularly go that way as they were right in the thick end of things with the SimRC car that was trying to fight their way through the order and try and charge down the race leader. You were saying that you were very impressed with Gollenbeck's progress, and rightfully so. Same as we were about this car, the BMW of Volante Esports, that was right down at the end of the order from qualifying, from pace, from potential in the BMW, but boy did they get involved.
They really did all the way through, and the Volante car defending with some Volante valor is what they'd like to call it. And seriously, it was surprising to see the BMW do so well, but chaos in the midfield was a common factor. You saw lots of touching, lots of argy-bargy here and there, and you've got to wonder what it would have been for the Radicals team had they not been turned around. But hey, ifs and buts, that do not matter. They've only got to focus on the next round now.
Yeah, they'll ask those questions from both races as it wasn't perfection from them. Either way, it was all about SimRC. It's now all about Core. Is that going to continue next round when we are back in a week's time? Thank you so much for watching. Hugo Luis doing the broadcast throughout the day. Lewis McGlade, Somel Aurora alongside. We'll see you next week and, of course, tomorrow. Until then, though, bye-bye.